The Sorcerer, The Path to Transcendence starting from Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 Fisherman. Did he run away? Makarov sighed. Even if he did, the Phantom Overlords are showing signs of war, and the guild has a lot of things to deal with. With that, he turned and left the devastated area, his hands behind his back. In reality, Weiss hadn't fled, he had simply hidden himself, examining his cracked wand. This wand had accompanied him through over a decade of trials and tribulations, witnessing countless battles, but it could no longer withstand such intense magic. "Don't worry, I won't abandon you. It's time to upgrade you," Weiss whispered to the wand, as if it could actually hear him. "But the more urgent thing now is to pull out those little rats underground." As Weiss finished his words, the lurkers beneath the ground, sensing an unprecedented threat, hurriedly tried to flee. With a deafening roar, Weiss had blasted the ground apart, sending dirt flying. A figure emerged from the dirt. It was none other than Thor, one of the four elements of the Phantom Ruler Guild. "Stop, I mean no harm." Thor's voice was tinged with fear as he hurriedly struggled out of the dirt, his body covered in mud and grass. Weiss eyed the man emerging from the ground with caution. Thor had a mop of unruly green hair and wore a well-tailored brown suit and monocle, a classic gentleman's attire. His attire was incongruous with his rather unassuming appearance. Weiss easily recognized him. "Did your guild leader send you to follow Makarov?" Weiss shook his head, dismissing the idea. "That's impossible. Makarov couldn't have been hidden from you with your skills. It seems you came into the area while we were fighting." Hey, Thor rubbed his hands, a smile plastered on his face, trying to appear more friendly. "The guild leader only asked me to monitor the situation in the city, but I didn't expect to witness such a spectacular duel. A battle between two powerful warriors is truly rare." Weiss's face darkened. "Was it good?" he asked coldly. "It was simply incomparable," Thor stiffly managed. Realizing his precarious situation, he tried to defend himself. "I didn't mean to." Weiss had no intention of hearing further explanation. He impatiently waved his arm, instantly turning Thor completely to stone, stripping him of his ability to move without a chance to resist. "This guy must know a lot about the Phantom Ruler's secrets," Weiss thought to himself, not intending to end Thor's life easily. He decided to delve into his memories, searching for any clues that might be useful for his next move. Concentrating his mental energy, he directly invaded Thor's brain and began to explore his memories. Through Thor's memories, Weiss not only learned details about the Phantom Ruler's recent activities, but also unexpectedly discovered some of Thor's unique techniques for practicing earth magic. This information wasn't particularly important to Weiss, but it was better than nothing. More importantly, Weiss learned that Joseph Pola, the leader of the Phantom Ruler Guild, had been secretly amassing a vast collection of precious materials. The exact location of his stash was known only to Joseph Pola himself, but Weiss, with a careful eye, could find clues. "I'm running low on materials too, so I'll need to replenish them," Weiss said, his gaze fixed on the horizon, as if foreseeing his imminent reward. "He'll eventually be defeated by Fairy Tail anyway, so I'll just sit back and reap the benefits." Weiss was deeply intrigued by Joseph Pola's hidden stash of precious materials and his mastery of dark magic. After obtaining the necessary intelligence, Weiss discarded Thor like trash, leaving him to petrify. He turned his attention to the more important matter of improving his wand. A few days would be a good time to think about wand upgrades, maybe even sketch them out. Meanwhile, the conflict between Fairy Tail and the Phantom Ruler Guild raged on. Weiss did not intervene directly in the conflict, choosing instead to remain a spectator, quietly observing the unfolding events. Ultimately, as he had anticipated, Fairy Tail, through the concerted efforts of its members, defeated the Phantom Ruler, and its leader, Joseph Pola, was decisively defeated by Fairy Tail's leader, Makarov, using the metamagic fairy law. Throughout, Weiss closely observed the unfolding battle, particularly the powerful display of the Phantom Ruler's war fortress and Makarov's use of fairy law, which left him breathless. Following the battle, the Magic Council quickly intervened, apprehending the defeated Phantom Ruler leader, Joseph Pola, and preparing to bring him back to council headquarters for trial. As the council's escort troops departed Magnolia City, Weiss found his perfect opportunity to act. As the council's procession gradually receded, a young man wearing glasses, riding a horse, stood out at the front. He suddenly raised his hand and commanded, "Halt," and the entire procession immediately halted. The armed forces of the Magic Council quickly formed up, wielding spears and surrounding the prisoner wagon. At that moment, Weiss emerged from the nearby woods and confronted the council's escort. "Please, hand over President Joseph Pola to me." The bespectacled captain dismounted, wand clenched in both hands, and pointed it at Weiss. "Are you a remnant of the Phantom?" Weiss shook his head. "It seems you're going to refuse." "I didn't want to resort to violence, arrogant." The bespectacled captain launched the attack. In less than a minute, the once awe-inspiring council members fell to the ground, incapacitated. Weiss easily overcame all obstacles, but he didn't kill them, he simply temporarily disabled them. He walked to the prisoner wagon and easily opened the cage. Joseph Pola was in dire straits. The backlash of his super magic combined with the council's seal had left the once mighty 10 holy mages utterly weakened. "Who are you? Aren't you here to save me?" Weiss directly extracted Joseph's memory. In this way, he not only obtained the secret of Joseph's practice of black magic, but also learned the location of a hidden treasure. Chapter 127 Pluto? Joseph, already severely injured, eventually fainted from the intense mental torture he endured, unable to bear the pain and humiliation. After confirming he had all the necessary information, Weiss turned to leave. Captain Bespectacled struggled to his feet, leaning on his wand. "The council will not let you go," Weiss, without looking back, simply said this before disappearing from his sight. "That's your business." A few days later, Weiss appeared in another city. Following the address he had obtained from Joseph Pola, he arrived at a historic bank. After passing a series of security checks and correctly entering the password, the bank clerk respectfully led him to a hidden vault. "This is Mr. Ace's vault," the clerk said briefly before politely exiting, leaving Weiss alone. Ace was a false identity Joseph Pola had adopted to conceal his identity. As a shrewd old fox, he understood the principle of having 3 burrows, and this vault was one of his backup plans. However, life is unpredictable, and now all these preparations have become a blessing for Weiss. The moment he opened the safe, a dazzling light shone upon his eyes. A mountain of gold, silver, and treasures formed a vast expanse, but these were not Weiss's primary purpose. What truly captivated him were the precious magical materials and various rare potions. As one of the 10 holy magi and the president of the Phantom Ruler Guild, Joseph possessed an extremely discerning eye, and anything he collected was naturally the finest of the best. Weiss was delighted with his find, carefully packing everything into a box and leisurely leaving the bank. Feeling elated, he strolled through the bustling streets, enjoying a moment of relaxation after his haul. This tranquility was short-lived, as he felt a pair of eyes staring at him from the shadows. Who could it be? Weiss wondered, maintaining a calm demeanor and feigning nonchalance as he led the pursuer to a less crowded area. Just as he was about to confirm their intentions, the pursuer suddenly appeared. "We meet again, Mr. Weiss." The visitor was none other than Arusha, a member of the council, now standing before Weiss in her true form. "It's you. What do you want from me?" Someone like Arusha wouldn't come to him for no apparent reason. "Please reintroduce myself. I'm Arusha, a council member." "You've been causing quite a stir in Magnolia City," Arusha asked, twirling her hair. "You don't seem surprised by my true identity." "Just say it," Arusha shrugged and continued. "Well, you've been giving the Magic Council a lot of trouble. Makarov mentioned in his report to the council that you possess strength comparable to his. That's pretty shocking to those old men." "A mysterious mage at the level of the 10 holy magi," Arusha added with a smile. "Furthermore, your actions are so reminiscent of the forces of darkness. I'm afraid your wanted poster will be all over the continent tomorrow." "So?" Weiss asked calmly, remaining calm. "I can help you," Arusha's voice held a hint of allure. "It'll just cost you a small price." Weiss simply shook his head, not wanting to listen any further, and walked right past Arusha. "Hey, stop. Don't you understand the gravity of this situation?" Arusha's voice was tinged with urgency. Weiss paused and turned to face Arusha. "I understand perfectly well, but I'm not interested in getting involved with your council. If you want a deal, at least show some sincerity." Arusha revealed her true purpose for seeking Weiss out. "Someone wants to see you." Weiss frowned slightly, clearly unimpressed by such an opening line. Arusha, seeing this, quickly added, "If you want the arc of time, follow me." Arusha turned and walked in another direction. Weiss paused, thinking, before following. The two of them crossed the bustling streets, one after the other, and arrived at a hotel. Arusha pushed open the door and entered, followed closely by Weiss. They passed through the hotel lobby and took the elevator to the top floor, where they entered a luxuriously appointed room. As Weiss followed Arusha into the luxurious room, it was completely silent, lit only by a dim light illuminating the walls. As the door closed, Weiss's eyes gradually adjusted to the light, and only then could he discern the elderly man sitting in the shadows. He sat in a large chair, draped in a robe, his right eye obscured by a black eye patch, and his long beard nearly reaching the ground. Even in the dim light, Weiss immediately recognized the elderly man. He was Hades, the former second-generation guild master of Fairy Tale and current leader of the Devil's Heart Guild. Not only had he changed his name, but his personality had also undergone a drastic transformation. From an affable, respected elder, he had become a mage pursuing darkness. Upon seeing Weiss enter the room, his single eye immediately revealed a scrutinizing gaze. Kid, Makarov's strength has declined. He can't even handle a young man. It's not that he's weak, it's that I'm strong. Weiss was simply speaking the truth, but it sounded a bit arrogant. Haha, Hades laughed heartily. It's been a long time since I've met such an interesting young man, but everyone can brag. A gleam flashed in Hades's single eye, and then a powerful burst of magic erupted. Under his precise control, this power was felt only by the two people in the room. Weiss didn't choose to release magic to resist. Instead, she walked over to sit down across from Hades, poured 2 cups of tea, and slowly pushed one towards Hades. When you get old, you shouldn't be so short-tempered. I know someone about your age who has a much better temper than you. Weiss acted calmly, seemingly unfazed by Hades's powerful aura. Hades took the teacup and took a sip. He didn't immediately respond, but his magic surged even more intensely. This time, even Arusha, standing nearby, felt the pressure growing too much for her. Tiny cracks began to appear on the objects in the room. Weiss tasted the tea in his hand and said calmly, "The taste's a bit off." "How interesting," Hades laughed, withdrawing the magic that permeated the room. "Arusha, you're interested in the Arc of Time?" Weiss nodded. Chapter 128 The Invitation of the Demon Heart. Restore everything. Weiss waved his hand, and a gentle yet powerful wave of magic emanated from it, covering the entire room. As this power flowed, objects previously cracked by Hades's magic were restored one by one, as if time had flown back, returning everything to its original state. "The Arc of Time," Arusha exclaimed at the sight, almost believing the legendary Arc of Time had reappeared. "No, not the Arc of Time," Hades' voice interrupted her exclamation. "This is another kind of magic, a power I've never seen before." He stroked his long beard, a rare expression of interest on his face. "If you're willing, I can trade this magic for the Arc of Time." Weiss looked Hades straight in the eye and made a proposal. Hades simply shook his head, showing little interest. His primary goal now was to find Zareth, nothing else was on his agenda. "If you're willing to join our guild," Arusha said, watching Weiss's reaction, adding, "If you're willing to join our guild," Arusha said, speaking for Hades at the right moment. "Your guild?" Weiss feigned surprise, as if she'd anticipated this sudden invitation. "The Dark Guild, Demon Heart," Arusha proudly declared. "Our goal isn't just to dominate the continent, but to pursue ultimate power. You've been targeted by the Magic Council. If you don't join a powerful organization, you won't be able to escape their pursuit." Arusha struggled to persuade Weiss. Facing Arusha's persuasion, Weiss bluntly expressed her opinion on the Magic Council's wanted order. "Magic Council? Only after they catch me." Weiss feigned indifference, but the idea of using Demon Heart as a springboard quietly grew in her mind. Joining Demon Heart meant the opportunity to journey to the mysterious Tenrau Island, perhaps even encounter the legendary Black Dragon Agnologia and Zareth, the most powerful and evil wizard in history. Joining a demon guild might be a good option right now. Weiss pondered for a moment, weighing the current situation against his own interests, and even Hades has personally intervened, so he must be determined to get me. After much consideration, Weiss finally accepted the guild's invitation. "In that case, I'm willing to join Demon Heart." Haha, Hades laughed heartily. "Welcome." With the addition of a powerful wizard whose strength rivaled that of the 10 holy magi, Hades' plans and long-cherished wishes would surely be successfully fulfilled. "I want free access to the guild's magical information," Weiss stated. "In this world, there's no such thing as a free lunch." Hades' smile widened upon hearing this, and he generously responded, That's not a problem. As long as you contribute to the guild, all resources will be at your disposal, Hades then stated his conditions. However, new members always need to prove their worth. I hope you can quickly establish merit for the guild. Wait and see. Weiss considered it a fair deal. Arusha poured fresh tea for the two and whispered, the R system is almost complete. Perhaps Weiss could contribute. I have no objection. The two sides officially reached a consensus. After Weiss left, a hint of worry crossed Arusha's face. She turned to Hades and said, President, I can't tell Weiss well enough. I'm afraid he's not truly joining us. Hades smiled. Of course, he's not someone who would willingly accept inferiority. But in my hands, he can't turn the tables. Arusha felt reassured. Yes, with a president here, nothing's a problem. The president is the strongest. The next morning, Arusha and Weiss arrived at the beach. There, a luxurious boat powered by magic crystal sat quietly at anchor, drawing a striking eye. The boat was not only exquisite in appearance, but also possessed a unique interior, practically a private room. Operating this ship is very simple. All you need to do is use your mental power to sense it, Arusha explained briefly. Of course, it's also equipped with a state-of-the-art automatic navigation mode. Weiss's eyes scanned the various buttons and indicators on the control panel. As Arusha started the boat, it sailed smoothly away from the coast, heading towards uncharted waters. After a day and a night of sailing, the boat finally docked in a distant location. Arusha observed Weiss's expression and smiled slightly. This is our destination, the Dark Tower. The final test of the R system will be conducted here. The site before Weiss was the pitch-black Dark Tower, towering into the sky, rising above the distant sea. The visual was truly stunning. Weiss gazed at the Dark Tower and exclaimed, it's truly magnificent. I wonder how much manpower and resources it must have taken to build such a tower on the sea. Arusha's smile curled up with satisfaction. It's just a trick to get something for nothing. The construction of the Paradise Tower was largely due to her contribution. Not only that, she even bewitched and brainwashed the youngest of the 10 holy magi, Zicrine, also known as Jacker, into becoming her puppet. This was undoubtedly her proudest achievement to date. As the boat slowly approached the shore, Arusha disembarked, donning a purple cloak and wrapping herself tightly. As long as you haven't given up your position as a member of the Magic Council, call me Grandmaster here, Arusha reminded Weiss. Got it, Miss Chameleon, Weiss teased. He had given her this unflattering nickname, impressed by Arusha's multiple identities. Asshole, don't give me a nickname. Arusha clearly disliked the name. Weiss simply shrugged nonchalantly. Grandmaster. Grandmaster, the guards along the way greeted Arusha respectfully. It was clear that Arusha held such a high position that no one questioned her bringing a stranger like Weiss in. The two of them reached the tower's highest floor without any obstruction. Before pushing open the door to the top floor, Arusha turned to Weiss and whispered, remember, don't talk too much. Leave everything to me. The door was opened, and what came into view was a young man sitting on a high throne. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Streamer Wand. A distinctive tattoo adorned his right eye, and his double eyelids, drooping corners, and golden pupils gleamed with a strange radiance. His short, sky-blue hair further distinguished him. Altair, is this the guest you brought back? Jello's voice was a languid note. He crossed his legs, his head resting on his right hand, and gazed down at Weiss with a scrutinizing gaze, as if taking in everything about him. Altair nodded slightly. Yes, Jello-sama. This is Weiss, a very powerful mage. Jello's gaze lingered on Weiss for a moment before retracting, maintaining his relaxed demeanor. Weiss's expression remained calm, unperturbed by Jello's attitude. He considered Jello a mere pawn manipulated by others, unworthy of his attention. Altair, seemingly anticipating Jello's attitude, persuaded him with a few simple words. Indeed, the final phase of the R system requires a powerful ally, Jello admitted. He had already hired the assassination unit, the Three Crows, to assist in the plan. Adding Weiss's help would undoubtedly make the operation even more successful. Jello didn't inquire about Weiss's acquaintance with Arusha, nor did he question his presence. To him, as long as his goal was achieved, nothing else mattered. How pathetic, Weiss couldn't help but sigh after leaving. If the Magic Council knew that Zicklin, their youngest of the 10 holy magi, who they had high hopes for, had been manipulated and even built the R system, they would probably be mortified. Arusha chuckled scornfully at this. Ha 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 ha, those old bastards are so thick-skinned, they wouldn't be ashamed of such a small matter. With that, Arusha led Weiss on a tour of the massive structure known as the Tower of Paradise. As they walked, the tower's secrets gradually unfolded before Weiss's eyes. Each floor was filled with incredible wonders woven together by technology and magic. During the tour, Arusha led Weiss to the observation deck of Paradise Tower, where they could admire the tower's intricate fusion of magic circles and high-tech equipment. The R system, or revive system, is a type of magic that uses human sacrifice to bring the dead back to life. This magic, known as resurrection, is strictly prohibited by the Magic Council due to its inhumane nature. 8 years ago, the dark magic cult, at great expense and manpower, secretly constructed the R system. Originally, it consisted of 7 towers, but under intense pressure from the Magic Council, these towers were successively destroyed. However, the Council was unaware of the existence of the 8th tower. Of course, we orchestrated this, Arusha said with a smug look on her face. Lord Hades cleverly diverted the Magic Council's attention, but I didn't expect so many geniuses to gather in this 8th tower. Jelil, Urza, and the 6 demon generals. Arusha lamented that it would have been nice if all of them had joined Devil's Heart. During the tour, Weiss encountered Urza and Jelil's childhood friends. However, these people were very resistant to Weiss's presence. Who the hell is this guy? Murmured the crowd. Ignore him, why would Jelil invite a stranger in? Weiss ignored the chatter. He had no interest in forming any connections, simply following Altair in his quest to uncover the tower's secrets. During the tour, Weiss finally met members of the legendary assassination unit, the Three Crows. Although the Three Crows reside in the Dark World, they are not affiliated with the Balam Alliance, making them even more mysterious within the Dark Forces. The Three Crows consist of 3 members, the most striking of whom is the warrior known as Owl. Owl is an exceptionally tall man with well-defined muscles, his bare torso exuding a powerful presence. He carries a jet on his back, and Weiss is most surprised to find that Owl has an owl's head, making him stand out from the crowd. Is it a mask or is it real? This question swirled in Wes's mind, sparking a strong interest in research, determined to uncover the truth behind this strange phenomenon. But now wasn't the time. Recovering from his thoughts, Wes returned to the room prepared for him. It was spacious and bright, with ample space for both his daily life and work. He placed his wand and any other magical materials he might need on the table. Next to him lay a blueprint. The intricate patterns and formulas outlined the design for the wand's modification. It needs to be stronger, otherwise it won't be able to withstand my magical power, nor will it be able to withstand spells, Wes pondered, meticulously marking and revising the design. For the next few days, Wes practically shut himself in this room, single-mindedly working on the wand's modification until he finally succeeded. The others seemed to accept his presence and left him alone. One morning, the door, which had been locked for so long, finally opened, and Wes emerged, his wand, now brand new. The original wand, after being modified, not only became longer but also shone with a silvery glow, as if it were alive. Weiss left the Tower of Paradise and arrived at the seaside. He raised his wand and pointed it at the boundless sky. As he pointed, the once clear sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds quickly gathered, obscuring the sunlight, and a storm seemed to be brewing. Then a torrential downpour fell, the raindrops pattering on the ground. Weiss was delighted with his new wand. Not bad. I'll be fully accustomed to it after a few battles. The other onlookers on the beach, however, looked at him in astonishment. Perhaps they had never seen such a powerful force, especially in such an isolated place. Weiss quietly put away his wand and returned to the Tower of Paradise. Simon, Wally, and the others, upon seeing this, grew wary of Weiss, the newcomer. While curious, no one approached to inquire about the nature of his magic. The news that Weiss used his new wand to change the weather and caused a rainstorm quickly spread throughout the Tower of Paradise. Chapter 130. Okay, I'll play with you guys. In this isolated tower, there were few entertainment activities and even fewer news. Therefore, within half a day, the news that Weiss was a powerful magician capable of changing the weather spread throughout Paradise Tower. However, the hype was short-lived, as another, even more significant piece of news quickly captured everyone's attention. Paradise Tower was nearing completion. Just as it was nearing completion, it welcomed a very important guest, the fairy queen Urza Shikalido. Urza, seemingly devoid of her usual spirited energy, appeared somewhat listless, as if she had suffered a setback. She followed a handsome, dark-skinned man, who enthusiastically explained everything about Paradise Tower. Urza's attention was completely distracted until she saw Weiss. "Why are you here?" she cried in surprise, and reflexively activated her transformation magic. A long sword suddenly appeared in her hand, pointed directly at Weiss. Seeing this, the dark-skinned handsome man asked with some surprise, "Do you know him, Quinn? He's dangerous." Urza quickly shielded Quinn behind her, and Quinn's expression softened. He gently pressed Urza's arm and said, "He's a wizard hired by Jelil. He won't hurt you." At the mention of Jelil's name, Urza's eyes dimmed noticeably. She paused casting magic and silently walked past Weiss, head lowered, without another word. "It seems the energetic fairy tale team is arriving soon. Perfect for testing their newly developed wands." As Weiss had predicted, within a day, news of a disturbance spread from within the Tower of Paradise. "Hurry, someone's breaking in, damn. It can't be the council." At this critical moment, the guards began to bustle, preparing for this sudden situation. Weiss heard the commotion outside the door and knew the fairy tale team had arrived. But he didn't act immediately, preferring to wait and see. He tossed his right hand, and several suspended spheres automatically floated out the door. These were surveillance devices Weiss had developed himself. Weiss sat firmly in his chair as several virtual screens suddenly appeared in the air before him, clearly displaying the invaders' movements. Familiar figures appeared on the screens: Natsu, Gray, Lucy, and the blue-haired girl. It must be Juvia. Natsu, Gray, Lucy, and Juvia each acted separately, and soon encountered their respective enemies. Weiss observed the details of each battle through the floating screens, watching with rapt interest. The images projected back showed that the battle was extremely fierce, but the members of the Fairy Tale Guild, relying on their tenacious willpower, ultimately defeated their opponents. At this moment, a new screen lit up, revealing Altier's slightly anxious face. "Weiss, the three crows and the officers have been defeated, and Jelil has no support. Go and help him buy some time." Weiss leaned back in the comfortable chair, observing Ursha's expression. Then she soothed, "Don't worry, everything is under control. There's no need to worry too much. Jelil should be able to hold on for a while." "Stop talking nonsense and help," Ursha, visibly more anxious, urged Weiss. Weiss finally stood up and walked calmly towards the door, saying, "However, I'm still not sure if others will be happy with my meddling. After all, this is the private matter." Ursha rolled her eyes in frustration, somewhat speechless at Weiss's attitude, and decisively cut off the communication. As Weiss pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the open space on the top floor, the battle between Urza and Jelil was in full swing. Their figures rapidly crossed in the air, each collision accompanied by a violent surge of energy. Weiss made no move to intervene immediately, but simply stood quietly observing, as if waiting for the right moment. Jelil, using only dark magic, was engaging Urza in a back-and-forth exchange. Seeing Weiss approach, Urza sped up her attacks, but in her impatience, Jelil seized the opportunity to counterattack. The other fairy tale members rushed towards Urza's aid, but were stopped by Weiss. "Everyone, this path is blocked." Eager to test the power of her new wand, Weiss abandoned her words and chanted the spell, Thunderbolt. Instantly, dark clouds gathered, obscuring the sun. Rumbles of thunder echoed from the sky, and flashes of lightning flashed through the clouds. Natsu, impulsive, desperately tried to rush over to support, but after taking a few steps, there was a loud crack, and a dazzling bolt of lightning struck directly at his feet, stirring up a cloud of dust. The fairy tale members felt a strong static charge in the air, their scalps tingling and their hair standing on end. At that moment, Weiss raised her wand, drew a graceful arc through the air, and swung it down forcefully. The sky began to rain, however, these raindrops were violent bolts of lightning, illuminating the night sky as bright as day. The fairy tale members paled. Faced with such a powerful attack, they had no time to consider how to avoid the deadly lightning. Juvia was the first to react. She cast a water barrier, protecting them all. Unfortunately, she seemed to have overlooked a crucial fact: water is conductive. Crack, a bolt of lightning struck directly at the water barrier. Ice-shaping magic, strong fortress. At the crucial moment, Gray intervened. Layers of solid ice walls instantly formed, perfectly blocking the lightning and Juvia, effectively blocking the fatal blow. Gray-sama, Juvia cupped her hands over her chest, her eyes filled with fascination and gratitude as she gazed at Gray, who had intervened in her time of need. Gray, too busy to pay attention to Juvia's intense gaze, stared intently at the relentless lightning strikes from the sky. "Be careful, it's not over yet," he shouted to his companions, even as the lightning relentlessly hammered down upon the icy walls. Due to the disparity in magical power between Gray and Weiss, even his all-out defense lasted less than 10 seconds before being pierced by the lightning. Just as Gray's defenses were about to crumble, Natsu rushed forward, standing before everyone. Chapter 131, All or Nothing. Gathering all his magical energy, he unleashed his signature move, Fire Dragon's Roar. A blazing flame erupted from Natsu's mouth, colliding fiercely with the lightning falling from the sky. The powerful shockwave spread, nearly destroying every building in the area. Weiss watched Natsu struggle fiercely, a meaningful smile on her face. To have grown to this level in such a short time. Zeref's crowning masterpiece, Devil's End, is truly fascinating. Natsu gritted his teeth and glared stubbornly, his face etched with defiance. "I won't lose to you again, you brag only after you can take this." Before he could finish his words, the previously tranquil clouds in the sky, summoned by a powerful force, began to churn. Soon, they coalesced into a massive thundercloud, a dazzling light blazing from within, a terrifying sight like the wrath of a god. Even Jelil, standing nearby, had to admit that anyone less than a truly powerful being would have struggled to even stand firm. An attack of this magnitude isn't something an ordinary magician can withstand. Only the legendary 10 holy mages can withstand it head-on. "Get out of the way," Urza desperately warned, attempting to dash forward, using her body as a shield to block the deadly attack. Jelil stepped forward with a swift, clean movement. In a flash, he was in front of Urza, his hands outstretched, stopping her in her tracks. Urza, forced to stop by this sudden change, glared at Jelil in anger. Jelil, for the first time, she unleashed a fierce, murderous rage against him. Urza glared at her former friend, the tension between them growing even more intense. Far from being deterred, Jelil's reaction only intensified. "That's right, Urza. That's the kind of you I want to see. Only a fierce duel like this can make my blood boil." As the two faced off, Weiss had already pointed her wand at Natsu and chanted a spell. The ball of light in the sky transformed into a pillar of lightning, descending from the heavens and slamming down on Natsu. Before the lightning could fully descend, the immense wind pressure had already ripped the surrounding ground apart. Everyone, pinned down by the force, struggled to hold themselves aloft. Meanwhile, Natsu, beneath the lightning, stood firm, his back straight, bracing himself for the fatal blow. He raised his hands, ready to take the blow with his own strength. Bang! With a resounding roar, the lightning pillar pounced upon Natsu like a dragon, engulfing him whole. The lightning's energy continuously assaulted his body, sending countless electrical currents raging through him. His clothes scorched the instant they touched the lightning, leaving black marks on his skin, and his hair fluttered wildly in the wind. The relentless onslaught of lightning trembled his muscles, and after a short while, his eyes turned wide, and he was on the verge of losing consciousness, yet he persevered with immense willpower. His companions watched, distraught, but powerless. The immense power of the lightning column prevented them from even approaching Natsu. Weiss's attack was deadly, but he knew Natsu would find a way out. After all, in countless battles, Natsu had always found a way to survive the most dangerous moments. Wasn't that the protagonist's specialty? Just when everyone thought Natsu was about to collapse, something unexpected happened. Natsu opened his mouth wide and devoured the lightning column. The lightning column crunched like a cookie in his mouth, swallowing it whole without reservation. However, his pained expression revealed that this was not a pleasant experience. Weiss hadn't expected Natsu to retaliate like this, and ultimately could only grunt, "Good teeth." Natsu's body trembled relentlessly, evidently struggling to control the lightning energy within him, preventing it from spiraling out of control. Steam erupted from his pores, and as the lightning energy reached its peak within his body, Natsu finally gave in. "I'm so full, I want to throw up." "Fire Dragon," Gray cried out first, then quickly corrected himself. "No, it's the roar of the Thunder Fire Dragon." As Gray finished speaking, a massive ball of light, a mixture of fire and lightning, erupted from Natsu's mouth. The two intertwined, forming an unprecedentedly powerful attack. Wherever the ball of light passed, the ground cracked like paper, and the entire Paradise Tower shook, threatening to collapse. Meanwhile, Natsu's companions were not idle either, shouting and cheering him on. "Kill this guy." This strike was the most powerful blow Natsu had yet unleashed. Flames surged within him. With a single strike, Natsu poured all his might into the attack. The flames morphed into a massive fireball, surging towards Weiss with a scorching breath and a deafening roar. After the strike, Natsu, exhausted, collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, completely unable to fight again. Even so, his gaze never left Weiss. As the lightning and fireball approached, Weiss simply raised her wand in her right hand. With such deliberate ease, the massive fireball stopped before her very eyes. The massive lightning and fireball was firmly blocked by a seemingly fragile wand. However, the immense inertia and impact lifted Weiss's robes, causing the ground behind them to crack like a spiderweb, and even the clouds on the horizon were scattered by the force. But Weiss remained motionless, like a rock, her wand slightly bent in her hand, as if under immense pressure. Then, with a flick of his hand, the power in his wand instantly reversed, easily deflecting Natsu's full-strength magic and sending it flying into the air. With a deafening roar, the fireball exploded in the air, transforming into a dazzling sea of inferno. The gusts of wind unleashed by the explosion tore through the dark clouds, allowing golden sunlight to filter through the gaps in the clouds, illuminating the battlefield. The sunlight shone on Weiss, making him look so tall, seemingly invincible. How could this happen? The fairy tale members couldn't believe their eyes. Natsu's desperate attack couldn't even make Weiss move an inch. Chapter 132, Fairy Tale's Blood, Then Just Take a Little Blood? Weiss briefly inspected the wand in her hand and nodded with satisfaction. The new wand had withstood the test. Not bad, such a powerful impact didn't even hurt at all. It's truly worth the money. He looked down at the collapsed Natsu. Abducting Natsu at this moment, however, the thought only lingered for a moment before Weiss abandoned it. Natsu and Zeref had an inexplicable connection. If they forcibly abducted Natsu now, Zeref would likely appear in the next moment. Weiss wasn't strong enough to fight Zeref right now. If Zeref attacked, Weiss would have no choice but to flee the world. This didn't fit into Weiss's long-term plans. Ultimately, Weiss abandoned the tempting idea. But taking a little of Natsu's blood as compensation wouldn't be a big deal, right? Weiss stepped towards the fallen Natsu. Gray, Lucy, and the others immediately stood in front of Weiss. Don't even think about hurting Natsu. Gray was the first to stand in front of Natsu. Even the little cat, Harpy, mustered up the courage to face the powerful enemy. Natsu, we won't let you come to any harm. Facing the crowd, Weiss simply stomped her foot onto the ground, and countless spikes suddenly erupted from the earth, charging towards them. Ice form, ice hammer, a massive ice hammer smashed into the ground, shattering the spikes. Immediately afterwards, Gray launched his next attack. Ice form, Lancer, he created a torrent of ice spears, piercing Weiss like a rainstorm. But the spears were shattered by an invisible force, scattering into countless ice crystals. Damn it, Gray gritted his teeth in anger. Gray-sama, Juvia is here to help you. Juvia's voice came from the side, gathering moisture from the air, transforming it into floating balls of water, ready to support Gray at any moment. Thank you. Despite their previous hostility, their magic now worked in perfect harmony. The water Juvia provided greatly reduced Gray's mana loss, freeing him to expend energy on conjuring ice from thin air. This allowed Gray to focus all his attention on the power of his magic. He clenched his right fist and slammed it down onto his left palm. Combination magic, shotgun. With his command, the surrounding water spheres instantly solidified into ice cannonballs, blasting towards Weiss. That's interesting, but it's still far from perfect. The two's combined resistance suddenly piqued Weiss's interest. With a flick of his wand, the speeding cannonballs suddenly stopped in midair, then reversed course and struck back at an even faster speed. What's going on? Gray's face paled. There's a fundamental difference between my magic power and yours, Weiss kindly reminded them. When magic power reaches overwhelming proportions, seizing control is a piece of cake. This situation wasn't common in the fairy tale world, unless both parties practiced the same magical system. But Weiss was different. He had many methods and a vast array of magic at his disposal, so deflecting the opponent's attacks was a piece of cake. The blow left the already wounded men even more battered, leaving them limp and unconscious. Weiss crouched beside Natsu and pulled an empty potion bottle from her pocket. As if drawn by force, Natsu's blood flowed precisely into the bottle. Soon, the bottle was filled. Natsu, lying on the ground, grew even paler, his breath growing weaker. Let's take this opportunity to collect more blood samples. These young fairy tale wizards are truly gifted. Weiss immediately began collecting blood from Gray, Juvia, and the others. Even the little cat, Happy, wasn't spared. A tube of bright red blood was drawn. Natsu sensed the pain and helplessness of his companions. Despite his own weakness, he mustered all his strength, scraping his chin against the ground bit by bit as he struggled towards Weiss. Finally, with all his might, he reached out and grabbed Weiss's ankle, mumbling haltingly, "Don't hurt, my friends, I'm not some murderer," Weiss replied nonchalantly, finding a seat. "Just lie still and I won't attack again. After all, you're too weak." These words pierced the pride of the fairy tale members. For a group known for its strength and unity, this was an unprecedented humiliation. The fairy tale members, who had been lying on the ground, almost powerless to resist, were encouraged by Natsu to stand tremblingly, despite their injuries. "You're such an indestructible cockroach," Weiss said, his praise tinged with disdain. This time, he made no further move, simply sitting there, allowing the fairy tale members to surround him. "Why waste your energy? Wouldn't it be better to just sit here and wait for the two sides to decide the winner?" Weiss's suggestion sounded reasonable, but the attitude of the fairy tale members made it clear that his persuasion was futile. "I'll give you one chance. Unleash your strongest moves." Weiss's attitude completely ignited the fury of the fairy tale mages. Lucy summoned her celestial spirit, Taurus. Mana surged around Gray and Juvia. Natsu stood on shaky knees. Meanwhile, the other fairy tale members, unwilling to be outdone, launched their attacks one after another, a flash of magical light. Facing the overwhelming onslaught, Weiss simply deployed a transparent magical barrier. The fairy tale attacks were like a drop in the ocean, unable to even break a corner of the barrier. The wind howled, the previously calm sky suddenly turned violent, a gust of wind rising, ripping the clouds apart. The fairy tale members were knocked to the ground by the sudden storm, especially the lighter Happy and the two female members, Lucy and Juvia, who were swept into the air. Gray and Natsu, despite their own fatigue and pain, reached out and grasped their hands. The force of the storm was too strong, and their already weakened bodies were too weak. Despite their efforts, the four people and the cat were ultimately unable to withstand the raging winds and were blown away from the Paradise Tower, disappearing from sight. The top floor of the Paradise Tower was at least 100 meters above the sea. At this height, if someone fell without protection, not even the sea would be able to cushion the fatal impact. Chapter 133 The Yellow Bird Behind. At such high speeds, the sea surface would be like solid concrete, enough to shatter a person falling to pieces. Weiss coldly thought, if those people couldn't solve this problem, then let them fend for themselves. He quickly returned his attention to the fierce battle between Jelil and Urza. By now, Urza had completely gained the upper hand, and every attack from her forced Jelil to defend with all his might. Jelil could only barely parry, unable to retaliate. What a mean guy. He's still unwilling to reveal his true strength. As a bystander, Weiss was well aware that Jelil was actually stalling for time, using only dark magic to fight Urza, unwilling to show his true strength. With her sword at Jelil's neck, Urza offered one last warning, "You've lost, Jelil. Your plot has been exposed." "Stop," Jelil's eyes dimmed. "You're as gentle as ever, Urza, but it's too late." "It's not too late." Urza refused to give up on her childhood friend, convinced that Jelil was a kind and brave man at heart. "Urza," Jelil suddenly raised his hand, gently caressed Urza's cheek, and whispered in her ear, "It's over. I won." With his last words, Jelil's voice turned into a wild laugh, his once stern face now twisted and mad. Urza froze, then realized she had been deceived. "Jelil. You're the only one I'll never forgive." In a rage, she raised her sword to chop off Jelil's head. Jelil dropped his pretense. With a flick of his finger, Urza's sword flew out. Under Urza's astonished gaze, Jelil calmly returned to his throne, pointing a finger toward the sky. "Urza, have you become insensitive? Didn't you sense what was about to happen?" Urza looked up at the sky, and what she saw was beyond belief. A massive magic circle appeared in the sky, gestating a terrifying power. "What is this?" Urza had never seen such terrifying magic. Weiss's expression also grew solemn. He stood up, staring intently at the magic circle in the sky. Only by experiencing the power of magic spirit power firsthand could one understand its true meaning. Weiss's forehead was covered in sweat. Is this the Adirio, who is said to be capable of destroying an entire nation? Don't people know that? Jello sat calmly on his throne, seemingly indifferent to the imminent threat, and explained the magic spirit power to Urza. Just as Urza was still questioning why the council had launched such a horrific attack, Weiss suddenly declared, "Here they come." Hearing this, Urza and Jello both looked upwards. Urza's eyes were filled with fear and resentment, while Jello's was filled with anticipation. Weiss, aware of everything, showed no sign of panic. The magic circle in the sky suddenly ceased, and the air instantly became eerily still, as if even time had stood still. A deathly silence. Boom! With a deafening roar, the attack descended from the sky, engulfing the entire Paradise Tower. The aftermath of the attack sent a massive wave so turbulent that the sky trembled, and the waves surged wildly, engulfing the surrounding ships one by one. When the attack ended and the smoke and dust cleared, the Paradise Tower remained standing. Ha 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 ha! Jello hid his face in a wild laugh, his voice echoing on the wind. It's finally time to begin. Zareth will be resurrected. Weiss removed the magic barrier and stood on a transparent crystal floor. He could clearly sense the magical energy contained within, though it seemed insignificant to him. The entire Paradise Tower had been transformed into this highly concentrated magical crystal, towering 100 meters tall and shimmering like a colossal gem. Just then, a figure resembling Jello appeared before them. However, the tattoos on his face were placed the other way, and he was also dressed in white. Urza felt as if she had seen a glimmer of hope. Zekrin. Stop, Jello, idiot. Weiss couldn't help but scoff. Can't you tell it's a human? You're so laughably naive, Jello scoffed, a hint of a sneer curling his lips. In a burst of light, Zekrin's body gradually merged with Jello's, finally merging completely into him. Jello's physical strength and magical power had returned to peak. He stood up and gently stretched his body, his joints crackling. Then, Jello vanished, reappearing before Urza. Before Urza could react, Jello delivered a powerful punch to her abdomen. Urza huddled on the ground in agony, her face pale and sweat dripping from her forehead. Weiss called Urusha. What's going on? Urusha's voice came from the other end. Her voice was low, and she sounded constantly on the move, as if evading someone. Isn't it the right time? My identity has been exposed, and I'm fleeing the council. Urusha's voice sounded calm. I don't understand my purpose here. Jello's plan can proceed smoothly even without me. Weiss asked the crucial question directly. It was just a test, to see if you're a hidden pawn of the council, Urusha answered truthfully. And what was the result? Obviously, you weren't, Urusha replied tersely. Then what's your purpose in building the R system? There's never been a successful R system in history, and Lord Hades thinks it's a shame. Actually, we don't have a specific purpose for building the R system. We just wanted to try something out of this opportunity. Weiss understood. They weren't building the R system out of some clear strategic need, it was simply an experiment. After all, Hades was Zareth's disciple, and he admired his teacher. Perhaps it was remembrance, perhaps a tribute, but there was no specific purpose. I see. Then I'll be frank, what are you trying to do? Urusha was instantly alert. You've already given up on Jello and the R system, Weiss said, stretching his body. Just doing it didn't seem like his style. Chapter 134 Abandoned. Indeed, I've gathered enough intelligence from the council. This identity is no longer useful. You should evacuate immediately. Urusha's voice sounded hurried, and in the background, there were the sounds of chaotic footsteps and muffled shouts. Yes, I understand, Weiss said casually. He stared at the massive Paradise Tower before him, sensing the powerful energy fluctuating within it. As you wish, but hurry. The council has dispatched a large force, including 2 of the 10 holy magi. As Urusha finished speaking, the communication abruptly ended, leaving only silence. Weiss put away the communicator. The Paradise Tower had absorbed 2.7 billion concepts of magic power. The entire tower now resembled a vast magical crystal, emitting a soft and dazzling light. This opportunity was rare. Weiss concluded that the Magic Council would probably not activate the magic spirit power again. This power was right before his eyes, waiting for him to master it. In that case, I won't hold back. Shatter, he plunged his wand deep into the ground. With a dull thud, the massive magic crystal that nearly filled an entire floor was shattered into countless brick-sized fragments. His suitcase seemed to have transformed into a bottomless pit, sucking in the precious magic crystals one by one. From the outside, it looked as if the top floor of Paradise Tower had been shaved off by an invisible knife, revealing a gaping hole. Before Urza and Jello could comprehend what had happened, their support gave way and they began plummeting. Only when they regained their footing and found themselves on another floor did they realize the gravity of their situation. "Stop!" Jello roared. Weiss, seemingly oblivious to the situation, completely ignored Jello's warning. He had to capture the entire Paradise Tower before the Magic Council arrived. Time was running out, and every second counted. Celestial Magic, Meteor, Jello, without hesitation, cast a series of afterimages, charging towards Weiss, determined to stop her frenzied actions. Armor, a suit of silver armor, seemingly tangible, appeared out of thin air, tightly shielding Weiss and blocking Jello's punch. "Do you know what you're doing?" Jello roared again, but Weiss ignored him and continued his actions. A dazzling bolt of lightning shot out from the tip of his wand, hurtling towards Jello. Jello dodged the fatal blow with the speed of a meteor. Net, the lightning transformed into a massive fishing net, hurling itself at Jello from all sides, blocking all escape routes. Jello was trapped in the center of the massive net. Dark Paradise, Jello raised his hands, and a pitch-black vortex appeared above his head. This black hole-like entity unleashed a powerful gravitational pull, devouring even light, let alone the lightning-woven net. Weiss's magic was sucked in, but Weiss knew Jello's attack wouldn't last long. This guy is not a match to be dealt with quickly. Weiss's true goal wasn't to fight Jello, but to recover as many magic crystals as possible from the Tower of Paradise. "I'm not very proficient yet, but I should have no problem holding this guy back." Weiss began to cast a new spell, his form gradually blurring and trembling violently. Like a phantom, another Weiss separated from the original Weiss. This wasn't just a simple clone technique, it split Weiss's power and magic equally, giving the clone equal strength. No matter how powerful the attack, this clone wouldn't easily dissipate. The only drawback was that any damage inflicted on the clone was reflected back to the original. But for the current situation, this support was more than enough. The two Weisses were in tune with each other, reaching a tacit understanding without words. The original Weiss confronted the enraged Jello, while the clone sprang into action, racing against time to collect the scattered magic crystals. This action utterly enraged Jello, his forehead bulging with veins and seething with rage. "Do you think you can escape my grasp like this?" he roared, launching another attack. He unleashed a powerful burst of magical energy. Celestial Magic, 7-star sword. 7 brilliant points of light appeared in the sky, arranged like the Big Dipper, emitting a dazzling radiance. Immediately afterwards, 7 brilliant beams of magical light descended from the sky like meteors, slamming towards Weiss with lightning speed and force comparable to true meteorite impact. Faced with such a devastating attack, Weiss prepared a response. Centered on his main body, a mysterious stream of water materialized, swirling around him. Its speed and magnitude gradually increased, until it defied gravity and soared into the sky, transforming into a mighty ocean current that soared into the clouds. The two opposing forces collided fiercely in midair, vaporizing the water under the intense heat, and shrouding the entire Paradise Tower in a thick mist. "Freeze field," Weiss shouted, her magical power erupting. The surroundings suddenly shifted, the air temperature plummeting to below zero, and snowflakes began to drift from the sky. Even her breath instantly condensed into icy mist, filling the air. Jello's speed was severely limited, and his movement slowed for a moment. Seizing this opportunity, Weiss flicked her left index finger, and a pillar of ice rose from Jello's feet, sending him flying. Jello, deprived of his support in the air, was caught off guard. Avada, Bite the Melon, a killing curse, carrying the aura of death, aimed directly at Jello in midair. Jello sensed the deadly force. Triple magic circle, mirror water, 3 different colored magic circles, black, purple, and red, appeared before him, forming a perfect protective circle. Weiss's killing curse, upon contact with the magic circles, was deflected back at an even faster speed. Weiss had no choice but to teleport, leaving behind a trail of afterimages. Jello put his hands together, 9 thunder stars. As soon as the words fell, 9 magical stars formed by the condensation of powerful forces attacked Weiss from all directions, forming an all-round coverage attack. Weiss dodged flexibly. Weiss's difficulty exceeded Jello's expectations. If he is not stopped from collecting magic crystals, Everything he has carefully planned for many years will be destroyed. At this moment, he urgently needs a strong helper. Damn it. Why hasn't Ultier come yet? Sorry, there are only 2 chapters today and tomorrow. The work schedule for these 2 days is too full and there is no time to write. Starting from the day after tomorrow, there will be a burst of updates. Chapter 135 Megadons. Jelil still didn't realize he'd been abandoned. He still believed the chaos was simply the result of Weiss's unauthorized actions. As expected, no one can be relied upon. One can only rely on oneself. Just as Jelil was about to launch another attack, a familiar figure intruded upon the battlefield. Natsu. Happy, Urza exclaimed. Happy struggled to carry Natsu to the top of the tower. Why does this tower feel like it's getting shorter? Natsu's intuition remained as accurate as ever. Happy, his tongue hanging out in exhaustion, panting heavily. Natsu, you're overthinking it. I'm exhausted, Urza. I'm so glad you're okay. Natsu grinned at his unharmed companion, as if the crisis had never happened. Gray, Lucy, and the others, Urza asked with concern, worried about the safety of the others. Don't worry, the Rain Girl will help us land safely. Natsu gave a thumbs up, looking confident. Urza breathed a sigh of relief. That's great. Hearing that everyone was safe, a long-lost smile finally broke out on her face. But her relief was short-lived, as Natsu, after announcing their safety, immediately turned to Weiss and Jelil, full of fighting spirit. Next, I'll be your opponent. You've recovered so quickly. What an interesting little guy. Natsu's actions only intensified Weiss's curiosity. One after another, Jelil scoffed. Kill you all, Natsu, run, Urza shouted frantically, but she knew Natsu was not one to give up easily. Urza is in this state because of you, right, Jelil? Natsu demanded angrily. So what? You think you can defeat me? Jelil, unconcealing his contempt, began mercilessly mocking Natsu and his guild. You? Natsu clenched his fists, his rage threatening to burst from his chest. Roar of the fire dragon, flames swept in like a raging tornado, but to Jelil, it all seemed ridiculous. Weiss, watching from the sidelines, seized the opportunity. Sigh of the wind, a powerful gust of wind surged forth, not only failing to extinguish Natsu's flames but fueling them, multiplying the power of Natsu's magic. Faced with Weiss's help, Jelil had to take it seriously. I don't need your help, you bastard. Natsu turned and glared at Weiss, who simply glanced at him indifferently, not bothering to explain to such a simple-minded person. As long as he could harness Natsu's power, his own goal would be achieved. After all, at this moment, they had a common enemy. Natsu, now is not the time to act rashly. You must stop Jelil's plan to resurrect Zeref, Urza urged anxiously. Natsu froze. Resurrection? This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Seeing this, Urza gave a brief explanation, revealing Jelil's true intentions. Natsu glanced down at the magic crystals at his feet, seemingly just noticing the changes in his surroundings. I was wondering why this tower had changed so much, how slow to react, Happy grumbled helplessly. Just then, Natsu noticed that Weiss's clone was continuously disintegrating the magic crystals around him, and a sudden flash of inspiration struck him. He's an enemy, too. I can't let him get away with it. Without hesitation, he smashed the magic crystals on the ground with a single punch, then quickly picked up a piece and stuffed it directly into his mouth. This action stunned Urza, who was watching nearby. Jelil emerged from the blazing flames and witnessed the scene. Are you an idiot? Swallow a magic crystal and expect to explode. Ugh. Natsu pounded his chest hard, forcing the magic crystal down. I'm Igil's child, how could I be stumped by a mere magic crystal, he said, wiping his lips. Eat it. I feel a surge of power coming my way. Indeed, as Natsu had predicted, his body began to radiate an even stronger light, magic flowing through him, becoming a part of him. Weiss could also sense the growing strength within Natsu. Dragon Slayer magic can indeed restore magic and stamina by consuming objects of the same nature, but directly consuming a magic crystal seems a bit over the top. His recovery and magic resistance aren't solely the province of Dragon Slayer magic. Zeref is truly remarkable, capable of creating such a perfect creation. Weiss couldn't help but sigh in admiration at Zeref's abilities. He could actually create a life form like Natsu. This was truly reaching the realm of the god. Zeref's mastery of magic far surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. Even Weiss herself felt inferior. Weiss, however, remained undaunted. Instead, She had a clear goal: to surpass Zareth. In the ensuing battle, Weiss solely assisted Natsu in suppressing Jello. As he collected more and more magic crystals, the Tower of Paradise steadily dwindled. In the distance, the council ships, initially faint specks on the vast ocean, were now clearly visible. The vast fleet, their fluttering flags, signaled the utter collapse of Jello's carefully crafted plan. All his efforts, all his calculations, shattered like fragile sand sculptures before the approaching ships, like a surging wave. Jello's fury grew as his plans collapsed. His magic raged like an uncontrolled storm, growing in power and frenzy. He unleashed his magic recklessly, the air trembling with his rage. Natsu, however, showed no fear in the face of the powerful Jello. He met the challenge head-on, each counterattack more ferocious than the last. No matter how formidable the enemy, he refused to retreat. His fists blazed with flames, each strike like a flaming meteor, hurling itself at Jello. Weiss calmly restrained Jello from the side, skillfully manipulating her magic to constantly disrupt Jello's movements, preventing him from fully engaging Natsu. Whenever Jello angrily attacked Weiss, Natsu seized every opportunity to attack. Like a nimble cheetah, he was always ready to pounce on his prey. What a qualified tank! Natsu was both a fighter and a defender. His body seemed forged of steel, enduring no matter how fierce Jello's attacks. Most importantly, facing a foe far greater than himself, Natsu showed no fear, fighting with a reckless abandon. His bravery and fearlessness successfully drew Jello's attention, forcing him to focus most of his energy on defending against his attacks, working well with this guy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Self-Destruction. Weiss's magical outbursts were like a dense hail of arrows, hurling themselves at Jello in a continuous stream, a stark contrast to Natsu's direct assault. Their combined attacks were like a surging tide, wave after wave, leaving Jello no chance to breathe. Natsu's brutal charge, perfectly matched by Weiss's ranged strikes, plunged Jello into an unprecedented predicament. Concentrating all his attention on guarding against Weiss and Natsu, he overlooked the potential danger. Jello's gaze darted back and forth between them, searching for an opening to strike back, only to be unaware of the threat looming beneath him. He took a step when a snapping sound punctured his ankles. Instinctively, he looked down to see several incredibly strong vines entwined around him like snakes. The vines seemed made of the strongest steel, and no amount of struggle could avail, severely limiting Jello's movement. The vines held him tightly, requiring every ounce of his strength to move. Immediately, before he could react, 3 thick steel walls sprang up from the ground, completely blocking his path. Caught off guard, Jello could only watch helplessly as he was trapped in the narrow space. Natsu seized the opportunity, his feet erupting in flames. The powerful thrust boosted his speed to the limit, and like a cannonball, he hurtled towards Jello. Weiss provided effective support from the side. Levitation spell, giant strength spell, with each of Weiss's buff spells, Natsu's speed increased. Before the trail of flames in the air had even dissipated, he was already closing in on Jello. Celestial magic, meteor, Jello responded with his signature move, his fists gleaming with golden light. Natsu's sprinting speed gave him no time to dodge, forcing him to engage head-on. But he seemed oblivious to Weiss's presence. As soon as Jello raised his hand, a vine perfectly wrapped around his wrist. The vine slowed his punch for just a fraction of a second. But that brief delay gave Natsu a precious moment. He deftly tilted his head to avoid Jello's fatal blow, then unleashed his long-held right fist, Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. The blow, channeling all of Natsu's strength, slammed into Jello's abdomen. With a painful roar, Jello spat out a mouthful of blood, his body slamming heavily into the iron wall behind him. The solid wall couldn't withstand the crushing force, shattering into countless shattered pieces. Jello was sent flying backwards by the immense force, plowing a deep furrow in the ground. Amidst this whirling dust, a devastating scene lay in his wake. Exhausted, Natsu collapsed onto the dusty, debris-covered ground, panting heavily, sweat and soot forming streaks of mud. Elsewhere, Jello struggled, unable to rise. Weiss then approached the fallen Jello. Jello's bones were nearly completely broken, and his internal organs were severely damaged. He spat out blood mixed with fragments of his internal organs. With such injuries, any ordinary warrior would have died long ago. Jelil stubbornly clung to life, but he was powerless to resist. Gravity override, the surrounding space suddenly intensified several times, making the already weak Jelil even more unable to move. Eventually, he lay sprawled on the ground, unable even to lift his head. Weiss pressed her wand against Jelil's temple. Your memories are valuable. Since your body is useless, it's better to preserve something useful. Weiss successfully extracted Jelil's memories. The intense pain caused Jelil to instinctively open his mouth, but no sound came from his throat. Only saliva, mingled with blood, dripped onto the ground. Jelil, now devoid of his former dignity, looked utterly miserable. Stop, Urza couldn't bear Jelil's treatment. Her sword, a streak of light, pierced Weiss's heart. Weiss reached out, grasped Urza's neck, and lifted her into the air. Then, he slammed her to the ground. She struggled to get up, but the force held her still. Don't bother me. While Weiss was distracted, Jelil regained consciousness. He activated his pre-prepared emergency measures. The entire Paradise Tower suddenly began to vibrate violently, the immense magical energy within ready to erupt. Follow me and be buried with me, Jelil unexpectedly commanded the entire Paradise Tower to self-destruct. The massive structure transformed into a massive magic crystal bomb, capable of destroying everything. Weiss tried to stop Jelil, but her strength seemed insufficient to prevent the release of this destructive energy. What a shame, Weiss glanced regretfully at the remaining magic crystals. A moment later, and it would have been too late. Weiss also had a backup plan. He activated the port key and vanished from the Paradise Tower. The next moment, Weiss appeared at the harbor. His sudden appearance startled the surrounding fishermen, who stopped what they were doing to scrutinize him. Who is he? I don't know, but he's definitely a mage? Nonsense, how could an ordinary person have such power? Weiss ignored the fishermen's whispers, his gaze passing over the crowd to the distant, transforming Paradise Tower. A dazzling flash of light erupted from the Paradise Tower, followed by a deafening explosion. A powerful shockwave swept through, raising waves near the harbor. Even those within the harbor could feel the terrifying aftermath. What's going on? The fishermen looked at each other, completely bewildered. Such an explosion must have caused heavy losses to the council. As for the two Holy Ten Magi, perhaps, thanks to their immense strength, they were able to survive the devastation. As for whether the members of Fairy Tale can survive this disaster, it all depends on their luck. However, that group of guys has always had incredibly good luck, and maybe they can get away with it this time. These are not the issues that Weiss is most concerned about at the moment. For him, the gains from this operation are the most important. He has looted a large number of magic crystals, which are extremely valuable resources for any wizard who pursues power. Seeing that the wind and waves are gradually subsiding, Weiss does not intend to stay here any longer. Altair has sent him the rendezvous address through a special method. After this test, they plan to take him into the headquarters of Demon Heart. It's interesting. I have also become a dark wizard. After speaking, Weiss left the port. Chapter 137 Headquarters. Cape City, despite its name containing the word sea, is actually a city located in the heart of the continent. The origins of the city's name, Cape, have long been lost in the dust of history, leaving no trace. This was the place Weiss and Arusha had agreed to meet. When Weiss found Arusha, she was sitting in a small, popular ice cream shop, a large, colorful ice cream stand before her. She looked like an ordinary girl next door, with nothing to suggest she was a member of the Devil's Heart organization. You've got some free time. You're the council's most wanted criminal now, aren't you afraid of being recognized? Weiss ordered a coffee and sat down in a chair across from Arusha. Same here, Arusha took off her sunglasses and handed Weiss a newspaper. Now you're a celebrity too. The front page of the newspaper boasted Weiss's photo and a staggering reward. It seems the council has really invested a lot of money this time. Weiss read the newspaper, his lips curling slightly, as if unsurprised by the outcome. Arusha gently stirred the ice cream with a spoon. The more chaotic the situation, the better. She stood up with a hint of a smile on her face. Let's go. Lord Hades has been waiting for a long time. Weiss glanced at the almost untouched coffee in front of him, muttering to himself that Arusha might be doing this to get back at him. How petty, he muttered, then took a sip of coffee. Normally, he left enough banknotes to pay the bill and turned to follow Arusha. Both of them were skilled in their craft, and in a remarkably short time, They arrived at an abandoned mining area approximately 10 kilometers from the town. The area was rocky and dotted with towering rocky hills, resembling a natural maze, making it difficult for ordinary people to find the entrance. Arusha led Weiss through the rugged terrain, turning left and right until they passed a narrow path and suddenly saw a wide open space. A massive airship lay quietly on the ground, its massive bulk a stark contrast to the surroundings, like a sleeping beast. "Welcome to Demon's Heart headquarters," Arusha said with a smile and a raised hand. With her gesture, the airship's underbelly slowly opened, revealing an exquisite staircase. Arusha was the first to ascend the stairs, turning back to give Weiss a provocative look. Weiss remained unmoved, silently following and ascending the stairs. Once inside the airship, two neatly arranged rows of personnel, upon seeing Arusha, immediately shouted in unison, "Welcome back, Master Arusha," and bowed deeply. Among them, a girl with short pink hair and headphones, looking cute yet with a slightly cold expression, was already waiting. A smile flickered across her face upon seeing Arusha, but it quickly faded. "Arusha," her voice was filled with affection and unconcealed joy. "I'm back, Melty," Arusha said softly, gently stroking the girl's head. Melty, like a docile kitten, enjoyed Arusha's touch, a happy smile on her face. However, a blush crept into her cheeks when she realized that Weiss, a stranger, was present. Arusha glanced at Weiss with disdain. Weiss shrugged innocently, as if to say he had done nothing. "Come on, I'll take you to meet your companions," Arusha said, taking Melty's hand and leading her forward. They were now at the very bottom of the airship, the warehouse area for goods and supplies. The airship's interior was extremely spacious, capable of accommodating at least hundreds of people. To facilitate movement, the airship was equipped with multiple elevators, including one reserved for senior executives. Weiss followed Arusha and Melty into the executive elevator. Through the elevator's transparent glass windows, one could see the intricate interior of the airship, the bustling crowds of people moving about. As the elevator steadily ascended, they were about to reach higher levels. Through the glass, Weiss took in the sights within, a spacious dining hall, immaculate dormitories, a fierce fighting arena, and even areas for members to relax and unwind. This airship was practically a complete mobile town, with every amenity available. Unless a member has a special mission, they stay aboard the command ship. The command ship never stays in one place for more than 3 days, constantly flying aimlessly in the air. This way, neither the council nor the official guilds can find us, Arusha proudly explained the airship's unique features. "That's a good idea." Indeed, Weiss's response was rather cold. In his opinion, no matter how magical this airship was, it couldn't compare to Hogwarts. The elevator soon reached the top floor, considered the heart of the Devil's Heart organization. This floor housed the president and all the officers' rooms. Whenever a major incident occurred, Hades would gather all the officers together to discuss countermeasures. This floor's decor was extravagant. The carpet beneath was soft and textured, crafted from the finest materials. The walls on either side of the corridor were inlaid with exquisite carvings, every detail revealing exceptional sophistication. As Arusha led Weiss and Melty to the end of the corridor, a heavy door appeared before them. Arusha knocked gently, and with a dull thud, it swung open, revealing a conference room. As Weiss stepped through the threshold, he felt 7 sharp gazes fixed upon him. They were the other 5 members of the 7 families of Hell. They looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and scrutiny, as if seeking to discern something unusual about their newcomer. In addition, Hades, the president and vice president, and Bruno Tesgard also sat in the main seats. Hades was clad in black armor, the cold metal gleaming in the light, exuding a mysterious and majestic aura. He gripped his scepter, and every movement was imbued with an air of inviolable dignity. The black armor clung tightly to his body, outlining his tall, upright figure, a formidable presence. Bruno, with his long black braid cascading down his shoulders and a hint of stubble, added a touch of age. His pointed nose and cheek-length sideburns gave him a stern air. Weiss and Bruno's gazes met fiercely in the air, like 2 intertwining bolts of lightning. Chapter 138 Welcome Ceremony. Weiss could sense the fluctuations of magic emanating from Bruno's striga. Its power was second only to Hades, and even Arusha couldn't match it. Meanwhile, Bruno also sensed the surge of magic within Weiss and observed him with interest. A good opponent, Bruno took a keen interest in Weiss before him, excited by the prospect of a potential challenger. "Can you fly?" "We'll know if we give it a try." Weiss's answer betrayed his confidence. While he wasn't one to actively seek conflict, he knew full well that the powerful individuals present were happy to test the strength of newcomers in this way. Then let them know I'm not to be trifled with. Weiss decided to make it clear to everyone present that he wasn't someone to be trifled with lightly. It's a relief to have a new member join us. There's no need to be so serious. Lazarus, the most talkative of the 7 families of hell, spoke up, intending to lighten the mood. But neither Weiss nor Bruno paid him any attention, which made Lazarus feel a bit embarrassed. After all, he was known for his self-centered and unpredictable personality. He could be chatting and laughing with you one moment, then stabbing you the next. Just as Lazarus was about to show Weiss's strength, Azuma stopped him. That guy's a wizard with a track record of fighting against the 10 holy magi. She said this, hoping to convince Lazarus that this newcomer was no ordinary opponent. You mean I'm no match for him? Lazarus pointed at Weiss with a touch of excitement. I'm just stating the facts. Azuma crossed her arms, her attitude nonchalant. I've been annoyed with you, you prim bastard. Lazarus's exaggerated expression made it seem as if he was about to attack Azuma. The other members of the 7 families of Purgatory chose to ignore the situation. They were used to these arguments, which flared up every few days. As long as Hades was around, a real battle would not occur. Just as the tension reached a fever pitch, a heavy thud broke the impasse. Bang! It was the sound of Hades's scepter striking the ground, its muffled reverberation drawing everyone's attention to the leader. Wes, you're new to the guild, and we don't know you yet. Hades was reminding Weiss that as a new member, he needed to demonstrate his strength and value to gain the approval of the other guild members. Weiss understood Hades's meaning and shared the same sentiment. Lazarus immediately stepped forward, offering his services. President, let me host this newcomer. I'll make him feel at home. He couldn't wait to have a friendly exchange with Weiss. He's strong, and I want to fight him too. Her reason was simple and direct. She found the thrill of battling the powerful exhilarating. When Azuma expressed her desire to fight Weiss, Lazarus's expression was as if she had eaten a fly. Tisk, he said, his inner sarcasm unconcealed. Several other members of the 7 families of Purgatory also expressed a keen interest in Weiss, eager to assess the newcomer's abilities. Just as the two were arguing fiercely, Brunette stepped forward. At that moment, everyone fell silent. Leave it to me, Brunette said, and no one in the room was willing to compete with him for the opportunity. To avoid unnecessary damage from a fight on the airship, the two decided to fight outside. News spread quickly throughout the guild. Everyone was curious about the extraordinary qualities of this newcomer who had dared to challenge the vice president so quickly after joining the guild. Guild members streamed out and gathered at the spectators' venue, their eyes filled with anticipation and excitement. Every member of the 7 families was present, their figures standing out from the crowd. As everyone watched, Weiss and Brunette stood silently facing each other, a few meters apart. Bruno's voice broke the silence. I can sense your strength. He twisted his wrist, preparing for the coming battle. I won't be careless. I'll go all out from the start. Then, Bruno unleashed his full magical power, a surge of force that made the air around him tremble under its pressure. Weiss, not to be outdone, his magic equally vast. His power collided with Bruno's mid-air, but no violent clash immediately erupted. Is that all your magic? Weiss expressed absolute confidence in his own abilities. Their magic energies intertwined in the air, creating visible ripples. Everyone present was stunned by this level of combat. What terrifying magic, on par with the vice president. The crowd buzzed with discussion, but most expressed admiration for Weiss's prowess. The faces of the 7 familiars were solemn. Weiss's immense magical power was beyond their reach. Hades' single eye lingered on Weiss. His magic has increased somewhat since we met, and there's even some within him that hasn't yet been unleashed. Hades sensed a vast latent energy within Weiss, yet to be unleashed. In this battle of magical power, Brunette was clearly at a disadvantage. Undeterred, Brunette's fighting spirit grew stronger as the challenge intensified. In his view, magical power was only part of the battle. The true key to victory lay in one's control of magic, one's mindset, and one's combat skills. Gravity suppression, Brunette commanded, and the surrounding air was grasped by an invisible hand, gravity suddenly increasing. Many mages from the Demon Heart Guild who were watching the battle were caught off guard and pinned to the ground by the sudden surge of gravity, unable to move. This battle is not for you to spectate. Everyone retreat, Azuma commanded in a deep voice. In reality, even before his warning was uttered, The magus had already realized the gravity of the situation, hurriedly helping the paralyzed companions to their feet and swiftly evacuating the scene. Weiss experienced the full force of Bruno's magic firsthand. Compared to my gravity spell, his magic is clearly more powerful. Weiss not only casts the gravity spell, but also mastered its counterspell. Facing Bruno's gravity suppression, he remained virtually unaffected. You also know gravity spell. Bruno noticed that Weiss wasn't relying on brute force, but rather skillfully neutralizing his magic. I've only mastered one gravity spell. I'm not as good as you in applying gravity. Chapter 139 Gravity. Weiss made no attempt to hide his true feelings. But I know more than just this one kind of magic. That makes it even more interesting. Upon hearing this, Bruno shed his white robes and assumed a fighting stance. Then, let me see your true strength. Despite his outwardly relaxed tone, Weiss remained wary. He faced Bruno at the peak of his powers. His magical prowess, fighting skills, and even his mentality were impeccable. But Weiss suddenly felt the weight of his body drop, and his body began to float. He's lowered the gravity around him. Bruno used this sudden feeling of weightlessness to close the distance between them, intending to deliver a punch directly to Weiss's face. Weiss acted decisively, his magical power surging, and a blazing black flame erupted from his body. The flames surrounded Weiss, forming an incandescent protective shield. Hiss! The raging flames forced Bruno to withdraw his attack mid-flight. He somersaulted to the side, successfully avoiding the all-consuming fiery flame. Bruno, undeterred, adjusted his stance mid-air and immediately launched another attack. The scene was tense. Gravity strike! He clasped his hands together and cast a horizontal gravity spell on the air. Ordinary air was imbued with life, condensing into two powerful air cannons that attacked Weiss from either side. The movement was fluid, without a single hitch. He has reached this level of control over his body. Weiss marveled at Bruno's mastery of his body. It was something he could never achieve. Even so, he remained resilient to Bruno's attacks. Weiss used teleportation to vanish from his position, easily dodging the air cannons and reappearing on Bruno's flank. He channeled his magical power, transforming the fiery flame into a ferocious tiger that roared and pounced on Bruno. With a single thrust, the latter launched his air cannon into the tiger, ultimately succumbing to the blow and being defeated. Black flames? Isn't that the same as Zankro's flames? No, Zankro, with his long, tangled blonde hair, replied with a hint of arrogance. My Fire God Slayer magic is even more powerful. Interesting. How many types of magic does this newcomer possess? Mastering many magics doesn't necessarily mean strength. The debate raged outside the arena, but it didn't detract from the fierce battle between Weiss and Bruno. Gravity magic is indeed powerful, but can your gravity withstand this attack? Weiss shouted. Mad storm. Countless razor-sharp wind blades suddenly emerged from thin air, encircling Bruno from all sides. Each blade was powerful enough to cut through steel, and their sheer number practically blocked any possible escape routes. Whoosh! A wind blade sliced through the air. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then all the wind blades activated simultaneously, piercing the air with sharp, piercing sounds. Facing the overwhelming onslaught of wind blades, Bruno calmly adjusted his stance, placing his left hand upward and his right hand downward. Between his hands, magical energy gathered, forming a pitch-black sphere. Distort, Bruno whispered softly. A powerful whirlwind, centered around him, grew in power until it transformed into a massive tornado. The massive tornado deflected all incoming wind blades, neutralizing Weiss's attack on the spot. The deflected wind blades sliced the surrounding rock in half, their surfaces smooth as mirrors, illuminating the sunlight with a dazzling light. Some of the wind blades even flew into the side of the 7 followers watching the battle. Of course, they weren't pushovers, each employing their own methods to easily neutralize them. This guy's understanding and manipulation of gravity has reached a profound level. Just use your magic to crush him. Weiss then slowly floated into the air, chanting a spell mid-air. Gurgle. At first, only a few trickles gathered on the ground. As Weiss's gestures shifted, they grew larger, until the entire earth began to shake, as if an invisible hand were stirring the waters deep beneath the surface. The spectators were stunned, asking, what's going on? What kind of magic is this? Even as they marveled at the sight, the gathering floodwaters had completely covered the entire sky, and the sky now looked like a vast gray curtain. The murky waters roared forward like a raging dragon, its fangs bared, its claws bared, sweeping away anything that stood in its way. The surging currents, streaked with rocks, were accompanied by a deafening roar. Bruno, now a tiny speck at the center of the storm, seemed small and alone. Far from being afraid, he felt a surge of excitement. This is thrilling. I'll take this blow head-on. Bruno's voice was drowned out by the roaring waters. He made a wave-like gesture, clenching his hands into fists, the veins on his forehead bulging. He pressed his foot so hard that it dug a deep dent into the hard ground. Supergravity ball, it was like literally pushing a mountain. This was his most powerful move. He concentrated gravity infinitely into a single point, triggering gravitational collapse and forming a black hole. This black hole devoured all matter and radiation. Not even light could escape its gravitational field. An endless stream of water was sucked into the tiny black hole, vanishing without a trace. The black hole's suction was so strong that the surrounding air and light were distorted, and the entire space became unstable. If Bruno had enough magic power, the supergravity ball could devour everything. But how could his magic power truly be infinite? Just as Bruno felt a little proud, Weiss appeared behind him. It's over. Bruno felt a sense of foreboding. If he stopped the magic immediately, he might still have some strength left to continue his fight with Weiss. But Bruno was a proud man. If he couldn't withstand Weiss's blow head-on, he would be haunted by this knot for the rest of his life, unable to let go. It's not over yet, Bruno roared. How could he lose to this newcomer? His dignity wouldn't allow it. Determined to prove his strength, he resolutely drained the last ounce of his magic power, increasing the power of his supergravity sphere to its maximum, and the black hole's pull reached its peak. How stubborn, Weiss said, raising his wand at Bruno. Freeze, an icy aura emanated from the wand's tip, freezing the entire battlefield. Not only Bruno, but also the raging floodwaters, were frozen in that moment. Where once rocky mountains had stood, they were transformed into a crystalline expanse of ice, and all the noise was reduced to silence. Chapter 140 Departure. The battle ultimately ended with Bruno severely injured from the cold. Weiss emerged victorious, his strength recognized by all, and no one dared to underestimate the newcomer. Even Lestulus, who had initially challenged him, was subdued by the battle and refrained from further action. Despite Weiss's victory, his position within Demon Heart remained somewhat delicate. While his victory over the vice president proved his strength, many were unfamiliar with his personality and temperament, and thus maintained a certain distance, a mixture of respect and reservation. But these were not Weiss's concerns. He came here not to vie for power, but to pursue the ultimate in magic. After the battle, Hades showed Weiss a rare generosity, unreservedly teaching him the techniques of the Arc of Time. Even so, Weiss remained unsatisfied. The 7 families of Purgatory possessed extremely rare and powerful lost magic, and he desired it all to complete his own magical repertoire. However, Hades refused, and he remained wary of Weiss. So, Weiss proposed a bold idea: trade magic for magic. Initially, Hades was unimpressed. After all, he had traveled the continent for years and had seen every kind of magic. But when Weiss pulled the rune-covered Black Book of the Dead from his bosom, Hades's attitude suddenly changed. This ancient tome, containing descriptions of dark magic unseen by this world and terrifying spells for resurrecting the dead, captivated him deeply. Hades's gaze grew intense, as if he were about to devour the book. Weiss knew the Black Book of the Dead's invaluable value, and he would never have given it up without the assurance of an unscathed escape from Hades's clutches. Naturally, Hades recognized this as well, unwilling to relinquish this alluring tome. After a moment's inner struggle, Hades finally made a decision. He pinched his nose, as if making a significant concession, and struck a deal with Weiss, trading his mastery of 6 other rare magics for the Black Book of the Dead. As to whether the deal was worth equal value, each had his own calculations. Weiss obtained the powerful magic he'd always dreamed of, while Hades possessed a secret weapon capable of changing the landscape of the continent. In the process, each believed they had gained an advantage, achieving their own goals. Perhaps, in this world where the strong reign, the exchange of benefits holds far greater allure than mere power. For the next few days, Weiss and Hades locked themselves in their respective rooms, absorbed in their newfound magic. Weiss was particularly fascinated by the Arc of Manifestation, believing it to be the most intriguing of the 7 lost magics. With a flick of his finger, a strange light flickered in the void, as if he could touch another dimension. One day, while Weiss was immersed in his magic studies, the airship suddenly began to shake. He paused and looked out the window. He saw the airship slowly ascend, soon reaching the sky. White clouds drifted past the window, and it seemed as if the enormous airship was bound for an unknown destination. As Weiss gazed out at the sea of clouds, a regular knocking sounded outside the door. Dong dong dong, come in. The door was pushed open, and a messenger hurried in. Lord Weiss, the president has called everyone to a meeting. After saying that, the messenger gently closed the door and left. Weiss narrowed his eyes slightly, secretly calculating the time in his mind. It seems that we are going to attack Tenrau Island. Weiss sorted out his thoughts, got up and went to the conference room. When he arrived, he found that everyone had gathered, and only Brunette, who was still recovering from his injuries, was absent. Since everyone is here, let's get started directly. Hades slammed the scepter in his hand heavily on the ground. There are 2 goals for this operation, Hades continued. The first is to welcome Zareth, and the second is to destroy Fairy Tale. As soon as these words came out, the entire conference room suddenly boiled, and everyone began to talk. Zerf, the legendary strongest wizard, is he really still alive? He must be hundreds of years old by now. The ordinary members were hearing these stories for the first time. The name Zareth, to them, seemed like a distant myth, but now it suddenly became a part of reality. Silence. Hades banged his scepter again, and the hall instantly fell silent. Our target is Tenrau Island. Set off immediately. He then gave precise coordinates. To ensure everyone understood the importance of the mission, Hades produced a detailed map, documenting every detail of Tenrau Island, including its topography and Fairy Tale personnel. Sure enough, even the most rigorous defenses could not withstand the threat from within. Without Hades, simply finding Tenrau Island would have taken an untold amount of time and effort. As the secret base of the Fairy Tale Guild, Tenrau Island's location was extremely hidden, virtually unknown to the average person. The powerful magical energy within the island's perimeter and the ground beneath it made it difficult for outsiders to discover. But with Fairy Tale's second-generation leader leading the way, everything was easy. Hades stood at the bow, seemingly in complete control. He then laid out his battle plan briefly. He didn't take Fairy Tale seriously, so it was a crude and simple one. If it weren't for Zareth, such a large-scale operation wouldn't have been necessary. After a day and a night of flight, the airship finally left land and entered the vast ocean. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, shimmering across the shimmering sea. The blue sky and white clouds blended brilliantly with the azure waters, making it difficult to tell whether the airship was actually in the sky or on the surface. Just as everyone was immersed in this beautiful scenery, someone suddenly announced, "A fleet has been spotted below." Another lookout's voice echoed throughout the airship, "It's the Council's fleet, enter stealth mode." With a series of commands from Hades, the airship entered stealth mode, becoming virtually undetectable to the naked eye. Simultaneously, the airship's internal magical devices began to operate, minimizing any fluctuations in magical power to ensure it would not attract unwanted attention. Zankro looked at the Council fleet below and asked in confusion, "Why are the Council's troops here?" Chapter 141, Xianlang Island. Arusha glanced at Zankro. She knew their dispositions well. Those council members have never liked Fairy Tale. They're always causing trouble for them, killing each other. Even more cruel than us dark guilds. Let me burn them all to ashes. Zankro was about to leap from the airship, but Azuma stopped him. Huh? Zankro paused and looked back at Azuma. Seeing Zankro about to explode, Azuma quickly explained, "Your flames are too conspicuous. If Fairy Tale notices them, it will affect the president's plans. Let me deal with the council members." Zankro, though displeased, recognized Azuma's point and gave way. Azuma gracefully leaped from the airship, his figure transforming into a dark shadow in the air before disappearing silently into the sea below. Everyone on the airship remained on high alert, awaiting news from Azuma. The sea was calm, with only the occasional passing of seabirds. The council's ships were unaware of the impending danger. The airship quickly passed the council's ships and, as it neared Tenrau Island, Hades gazed at the gradually clearing outline of the island ahead. The sight of Tenrau Island was breathtaking. It consisted of 2 connected islands, with a massive tree towering above, and below, a distinct landscape of 2 forests, one large and one small. Amidst this sea, Tenrau Island resembled a solitary flower blooming, exuding a beautiful and mysterious aura. Gazing at the island below, Hades recalled the past, when he and a group of like-minded friends had founded Fairy Tale. However, with time, he had found his own path. As Hades lost himself in his memories, a loud explosion echoed from the direction of the council's fleet. Boom! The council's ships exploded one after another, sending flames and smoke billowing into the sky. Azuma had begun to act, and it was showing initial results. With the council fleet destroyed, only flaming wreckage remained on the sea, and thick smoke obscured a portion of the sky like a black cloud. Azuma's actions were not only unexpected but also deadly ineffective. Meanwhile, aboard the airship, upon receiving the departure command, its cloaking status was instantly lifted, and the massive airship appeared over Tenrau Island, becoming the sole outsider. The hatch opened, and the demon heart mages leaped from the sky, dispersing to different corners of the island. Among them, the 7 infernal families headed straight for the fairy tale base, aiming to eliminate the powerful S-class mages. The majority of the combat force was committed to ground operations, leaving only a small number of logistics personnel for support. Weiss stood at the hatch, ready to join the group on Tenrau Island, but his purpose wasn't to fight, he was simply curious about the island. As he prepared to jump, Hades' voice rang out, "Do you want to join the battle? Just a little tour. After all, after today, we might not be able to see this island anymore," Weiss replied with a hint of regret. With that, he leaped from the airship. As he neared the ground, he used magic to control his descent, landing smoothly on the soft earth. Upon stepping onto Tenrau Island, Weiss immediately sensed a distinct surge of magical energy, a power that blended seamlessly with the entire island, a remarkably harmonious force. This magical energy originated from Mavis Vivia Miglio, the founder of the Fairy Tale Guild. Her grave lay in the heart of Tenrau Island, but she wasn't truly deceased, instead existing in a mysterious state of being. Weiss, intrigued, decided to investigate for herself. So, he began his journey towards the heart of Tenrau Island. As he advanced, the surrounding landscape became increasingly diverse, with lusher trees and more vibrant flowers. Along the way, Weiss even discovered several rare herbs, which he carefully picked, intending to study and use later. If it weren't for the occasional sounds of fighting and explosions all around him, reminding him that a battle was underway, his stroll would have seemed like a leisurely stroll. Weiss had no intention of engaging in combat. A battle of this magnitude simply didn't pique his interest. Is there a chance we'll run into Zareth? Instead of Zareth, Weiss ran into Levy, a wizard from the Fairy Tale Guild. Levy had just escaped the chaotic battlefield with the Gadgeel's help and was about to seek help from her companions. The sudden appearance of Weiss made her instinctively alert, filled with wariness and nervousness. "Just pretend I didn't see you." Weiss ignored Levy and walked right past her. He didn't want to provoke anyone. Just a few steps later, the magical energy behind him suddenly intensified. He couldn't help but sigh, "I don't want to engage in a pointless battle. Let's just pretend we never met, asshole. I'm a fairy tale wizard too, stop looking down on me." 3-dimensional letters, flame. Levy raised her magic pen and wrote the word flame in the air. The word solidified in the air, transforming into blazing flames that attacked Weiss. Interesting magic. Snap. Weiss slapped the flames, instantly extinguishing them. Levi began casting 3-dimensional words, butterfly again. Countless colorful butterflies fluttered before Weiss, obscuring his vision. 3-dimensional words, ice and snow. A chill permeated the air, sending the temperature plummeting. Finally, 3-dimensional words, thunder transformed into bolts of lightning, striking Weiss directly. Levi panted heavily, unleashing 4 spells in a single breath, eager for their effects. Did it work? After she finished casting all the spells, she felt a wave of anxiety. When the dust settled, Weiss remained standing, unharmed. Good idea. Confusion, control, and then attack. That's a good combo. Your magical potential is immense, he continued. The only drawback is that your magic is still too weak, Weiss commented with interest. Word magic, the power to transform written words into reality, was truly fantastical. Levi's magic was like a door to infinite possibilities. Every stroke offered a chance to create a miracle. If I remember correctly, your name seems to be Levi. Chapter 142, Defeat? Weiss had some impression of her. Levi nodded slightly, confirming her identity while awaiting his next words. Nice magic, improve your magic, she said, and was about to leave. Weiss hadn't attacked her not out of mercy or compassion, but because he had no desire to fight. Another reason was that Levi was simply too weak. Not to mention Weiss herself, even a small captain in Demon Heart could easily defeat her. This disparity made Weiss feel that fighting Levi was pointless. What did you do to Levi, Ahorse? Metallic voice suddenly boomed from nearby. Gadgiel appeared, covered in wounds, clearly having just been through a fierce battle. Judging from his exhausted expression, he must have heard the commotion and rushed over despite his injuries. Weiss stopped and turned, his gaze lingering on Gadgiel for a moment. "Gadgiel, you're badly hurt." Levy looked at the battered Gadgiel. She rushed forward to support him, but he pushed her away, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground. Though Gadgiel's actions were rude, she could sense the concern mingled with them. Tisk, Gadgiel couldn't utter an apology, not knowing how to express his complex emotions. He simply frowned and urged Levy, "Get out of here. This guy's no ordinary wizard. You're no match for him." "I'm not leaving. I'm staying to help you, idiot." Gadgiel was so angry he practically stamped his foot. "Who are you calling an idiot?" Levy retorted defiantly. Weiss looked at the two dickering lovers, feeling somewhat lost. "Am I superfluous here?" Weiss turned and started to leave, unwilling to be fed this duo's dog food. Before he could take a few steps, Gadgiel's voice came from behind. "Stop." Weiss ignored him and didn't stop. But Gadgiel persisted. He demanded, "You're an invader too, aren't you?" The pain in his body made every word difficult. Weiss turned and looked back at Gadgiel. He nodded, admitting, "But I don't want to fight. You'd better get medical treatment as soon as possible. Don't underestimate me. I'm an Iron Dragon." Even though he was seriously injured, Gadgiel's words were full of fighting spirit. Weiss had lost interest in dragon-slaying magic. "If you were a good wizard, you would be able to see the difference between us." "I don't care about that," Gadgiel roared. His right hand instantly transformed into a sharp iron sword and rushed towards Weiss. "Idiot," Weiss said angrily, and his wand transformed into a sharp sword, slashing at Gadgiel. "You're the idiot. I'm an Iron Dragon," Gadgiel roared, but his iron sword was split in two by Weiss's longsword, which then slashed through his chest, sending blood gushing out. "Gadgiel!" Levy screamed in terror, dashing to Gadgiel's side and trying to staunch the bleeding with her hands. But Gadgiel's body was incredibly resilient, and the blood gushed out like a fountain. "You're so strong. Any ordinary person would have been cleaved in two by that blow." Weiss had no desire to attack again. Whether Gadgiel could survive this ordeal depended entirely on his luck. Levy's sobs echoed behind him, but Weiss ignored them and continued toward the center of the island. Reaching the second floor, Weiss discovered a wealth of rare medicinal herbs, which required him to spend even more time. He also encountered some bizarre creatures. Some were enormous, like moving mountains. Others were capable of simple communication with humans, demonstrating their extraordinary intelligence. "What a wonderful place!" Weiss couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Just then, a powerful and unfamiliar magical energy erupted from the distance. It didn't come from any member of the Demon Heart Guild. The strength and uniqueness of this magic immediately reminded Weiss of Gilderts, the powerful figure of the Fairy Tale Guild. Only Gilderts has this kind of magic. His shattering magic seems quite interesting. Weiss's communicator flickered to life, and Altier's anxious voice rang out, "Stop Gilderts. He's already defeated several of the 7 familiars of Purgatory." Unlike in the original story, where Bruno held Gilderts back, without a peer to hold him back, Gilderts simply slaughtered his enemies relentlessly. The Demon Heart mages were steadily losing ground, unable to mount an effective offensive. Holding off the Demon Heart's attack single-handedly, he resembled an indomitable god of war, inspiring awe. "Where's the president?" "The president's off to deal with Makarov." "Stop the nonsense and go get him," Altier anxiously urged Weiss to hurry. It seemed Gilderts was putting a lot of pressure on Devilheart. "Got it," Weiss agreed, heading for the most intense surge of magical energy. Now a member of Devilheart, he had some obligations to fulfill. When he arrived, the members of Devilheart and Fairy Tale were clearly separated, each forming their own formations. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Weiss's appearance captured everyone's attention, especially on the Fairy Tale side, where the already tense atmosphere intensified. "You're from Devilheart," Natsa glared at Weiss with blazing eyes, as if he had seen an irreconcilable enemy, ready to pounce and bite. Fortunately, Gildert stopped him. "Natsu, who is he?" "He's the one who kidnapped Urza." "So it was him." As the Fairy Tale members rapidly exchanged information, Weiss calmly observed the situation on the Devilheart side. The battle scene was in chaos, the ground stained red with blood, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. Zoodle, the powerful wizard who had merged with a demon spirit of the Capricorn constellation. Huayin, the fat man of astonishing size. And Zankro, the one with a hairstyle like Super Saiyan 3. The three fell in a pool of blood, their life or death unknown. Altair and Melty were not there, they must have gone to find Zareth. Meanwhile, in a corner of the island, Azuma was fighting fiercely with Urza. Urza constantly changed her armor, her fighting skills were skillful and precise. Azuma was not to be outdone, unleashing powerful magic attacks in an attempt to defeat the Fairy Queen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143 Crushed. Of the 7 Purgatory families, only Lazarus, with a small group of soldiers, stood against the fairy tale forces. As a core member of Demon Heart, his presence should have instilled confidence in his side, but the situation wasn't going his way. Despite being wounded, the fairy tale members remained high-spirited, with no one withdrawing from the fight. In contrast, Demon Heart seemed to be struggling, even showing signs of collapse. Is Hades' expectations of you too high, or are you underestimating the enemy? Weiss's taunting was like a chilling wind in the tense atmosphere of the battlefield, sending a chill through Lazarus's heart. Despite his volatile personality, facing overwhelming strength, he could only remain silent. Facing a superior foe, Lazarus's inner arrogance was completely suppressed. He could only curse inwardly, daring not to respond outwardly. "Leave Gilderts to me, you guys deal with the others." Weiss's words were like a reassurance, bringing relief to the Demon Heart members. They led the other fairy tale mages away, leaving the battlefield to Weiss and Gilderts. The fairy tale members were reluctant to leave and wanted to stay to help Gilderts. However, Gilderts' magic was powerful and brutal, making it unsuitable for cooperating with the other members. Wendy bit her lip, her small hands nervously tugging at the hem of Gilderts' shirt. Although she had only known the older man for a short time, she was already touched by his gentleness. Gilderts noticed Wendy's uneasiness, bent down, gently touched her head, and smiled warmly. "Don't worry, Uncle, I'm very strong." Wendy nodded obediently, but her heart remained uneasy. So, she left with the rest of the group, leaving Weiss and Gilderts to face off. As the members disappeared from sight, Gilderts' relaxed smile dropped, and he became extremely serious. "If it's possible, I'd like to sit down and discuss magic with you," Weiss said. "I have nothing to say to someone who hurts his comrades. I have no interest in bullying the disabled." Weiss glanced at Gilderts' left limbs, noticing a slight incoordination. Gilderts' left hand and foot moved with noticeable stiffness. "That's not for you to worry about," Gilderts replied crisply, bending forward slightly and assuming a fighting stance. Weiss also prepared for battle, mentally calculating his tactics. "We can't engage him in close combat." The magic Gilderts wielded was the super advanced destruction magic, Shatter, its destructive power so immense that even he couldn't fully control it. After careful analysis, Weiss formulated a preliminary strategy: let's contain him first. At this moment, countless golden chains emerged from all directions, forming a dense, vast web that quickly enveloped Gilderts. Each chain in this web had been imbued with Weiss's magic, becoming incredibly strong. Gilderts remained standing, making no attempt to evade. Crack, with a resounding sound, the incredibly tough chains shattered into powder, scattering into the air. Whether attacking or defending, the shattering magic is incredibly powerful. No, this wasn't defense, it simply shattered my magic. Weiss quickly realized the difference between the two. The best defense is offense. Truly terrifying magic. As Weiss watched, Gilderts' body, a series of afterimages, rushed toward him at breakneck speed. If it weren't for his own body, strengthened by the Philosopher's Stone, he wouldn't have been able to keep up with Gilderts' movements. Facing this sudden approach, Weiss thrust his wand upward. The ground shook like a rug, and Gilderts lost his balance and was flung into the air. Waiting for Gilderts in the air was a bolt of lightning. Weiss had already prepared this move, sending a thunderbolt hurtling towards Gilderts. The lightning struck with a deafening roar, sending Gilderts plummeting from the sky. Gravity stirred up dust, and the ground shook slightly. As everything settled, Gilderts slowly rose to his feet, his clothing slightly damaged, but otherwise unharmed. He can even shatter lightning. Getting close to him will be a problem. Weiss's gaze was solemn. Gilderts' power was not to be underestimated. To prevent Gilderts from getting any closer, Weiss raised his hands, and a massive maze rose from the ground, trapping Gilderts within. The walls soared into the sky, their intricate maze impossible to escape. Gilderts gazed at the walls, wondering, does this kid have endless magic power? Just as the maze took shape, the sky suddenly shifted, and hailstorms began to fall. This was no ordinary hailstone. It was incredibly fast and incredibly large, falling from the sky like cannonballs. Trees were snapped in half wherever they passed, leaving the entire forest utterly devastated. Gildert stood unscathed in the center of the maze, his posture steady. A chill wind howled around him, the temperature plummeting. Heavy snow began to fall from the sky, fluttering and swiftly covering the devastated landscape, adding a touch of solemnity. Gildert's brow furrowed slightly. Soon, a thick layer of snow covered the ground, covering his ankles. Snowflakes danced wildly as Weiss slowly descended from the sky, stepping on the snow and landing steadily in front of Gildert's. How about a snowstorm in this scorching summer? It's a unique experience, isn't it? This kind of snow pales in comparison to the blizzards I experienced in the northern mountains. Gildert's had been exposed to all sorts of extreme environments, far harsher than the current conditions he'd endured in order to complete his missions. Of course, when you were healthy, this kind of cold wouldn't have bothered you, but look at your prosthetic limbs, they're cheap. Can they withstand such low temperatures? Not to mention your wounds, which haven't healed yet. Weiss pointed out Gildert's predicament. It's a small matter, nothing to worry about. Gildert's remained calm on the surface, but deep down, anxiety was creeping in. Damn. It's not just my wounds that hurt, my internal organs are already feeling uncomfortable from breathing in the cold air. This piercing sensation raged through Gildert's body. He endured the pain, determined not to let Weiss notice anything was wrong. Chapter 144 Evenly matched? In the face of an enemy, even the slightest hint of weakness could become a fatal weakness. In that case, I'll lower the temperature even further. Weiss saw through Gildert's fortitude. With a wave of his hand, the temperature plummeted again, the air solidifying into countless razor-sharp blades of ice. A commoner couldn't even open their eyes, let alone breathe, in such an atmosphere. A wizard as powerful as Gildert's, no matter how formidable, was only flesh and blood. Moreover, he had just suffered a severe injury, losing not only his left hand and foot but also some internal damage. How could he be as unaffected as he claimed? Don't call me mean. Weiss's voice rang out from the blizzard, a hint of sneer in it, as if mocking Gildert's weakness. Anger welled up in Gildert's, but he was helpless. He was speechless. Fighting an enemy meant using every possible means. He knew this, but facing an opponent like Weiss still left a tinge of frustration. He looked up at a dark cloud that stood out in the sky. Surrounding it was a clear, cloudless blue sky, but only this area was enveloped by the cloud, and heavy snow was falling. All of this was caused by Weiss's magic. Gildert's pondered a countermeasure. If I could destroy that cloud, the blizzard would cease. However, the cloud hung high in the sky, too high for even his ability to reach. Gildert's carefully estimated the distance. Even with his full strength leap, he couldn't reach that height. However, maintaining such magic would be extremely draining. He secretly rejoiced, confident in his own magical reserves. A new plan formed in his mind. If he could continually attack Weiss, forcing him to expend his magic, even the most powerful magic would eventually fizzle out. With this thought, Gildert's focused all his attention on Weiss, the flames of battle flaring anew. He spread his right palm and slammed it down on the ground. A powerful force erupted from his palm, and a deep crack appeared in the ground beneath it. Boom! The maze's structure began to crumble, the ground suddenly losing its support and collapsing. Gildert seized the opportunity and, like an unstoppable arrow, shot straight at Weiss's position. Weiss immediately waved his wand, and the surrounding natural elements obeyed his command. Stone, ice, snow, and branches soared into the air, converging into a powerful force that attacked Gildert's. These elements continued to gather, and the vast number eventually formed a huge, rolling sphere, trapping Gildert's within. Gildert's power was not to be underestimated. With another roar, the sphere suddenly shattered, scattering to the ground. Gildert's figure appeared in the billowing dust. Suddenly, a cold light shot out from the darkness, aimed directly at Gildert's. Freeze ray, Weiss's voice echoed through the wind and snow. Gildert's was prepared. With a wave of his right hand, he cast a shattering magic, easily deflecting the freeze ray. But this was only the beginning. Dozens of frost rays blazed down in quick succession, most aimed at Gildert's, while others scattered around. Gildert's cast shatter magic again, easily deflecting those aimed directly at him. Why is this attack so painless? However, He soon realized that Weiss's true purpose wasn't simply to attack him personally, but to use these rays to further lower the temperature in the area, making the battle even more unfavorable for him. The wind and snow grew stronger, swirling with snowflakes, making it nearly impossible for Gilderts to open his eyes. The white breath he exhaled quickly froze in the chilling wind. Every breath, the icy air entering his lungs, caused a searing pain. He could tolerate this pain. However, after his serious injury, he had lost part of his internal organs, causing his strength and mana to deplete faster than ever. He had originally planned to return to the guild to recuperate and adjust to his battered body, but he hadn't expected to encounter such a formidable foe. He had never expected that Tenrau Island would be attacked, and by such a formidable opponent. Weiss, aware of everything, showed no mercy just because he was injured. Every blow was delivered with all his might. Under cover of the blizzard, several vines silently reached Gildert's ankles, their sharp barbs piercing his boots. Just as the vines were about to take hold, they were reduced to shreds by Gildert's shattering magic. Tasting blood, the vines grew even more frantic, spreading in all directions and attacking frantically. Gilderts concentrated his energy, completely destroying each vine that approached. It's no use, these vines were merely a test by Weiss, who intended to use the environment and magical plants to restrict Gildert's movements. Your little tricks won't work on me. Knowing he couldn't remain passive any longer, Gilderts took a deep breath and channeled all his magic power. As his magic surged, a powerful light began to flicker around him. Seeing this, Weiss didn't dare to take it lightly. He swung his wand even more rapidly, unleashing a continuous stream of magical attacks in an attempt to suppress Gilderts. With a sudden stomp of his foot, Gilderts launched himself into the air, hurtling towards Weiss at rocket-like speed. As he flew, Gilderts nimbly dodged Weiss's attacks while simultaneously searching for opportunities to counterattack, his goal being close combat. When they were sufficiently close, he focused his magical energy on his fist and unleashed a deafening roar. Destroy evil, reveal goodness, one soul. This punch carried all of Gildert's strength. Weiss, well aware of its power, hesitated to take it head-on. He quickly used apparition to evade. Gildert's blow landed with a thunderous thud, its immense force piercing the air and disintegrating all matter in its path, creating a vacuum hundreds of meters long. Air currents surged, and the surrounding trees and ground were reduced to dust by the force. What a terrifying blow! Weiss, witnessing the true power of shatter magic, felt a chill run down his spine. But do you have any extra magic? Weiss tried to provoke Gilderts with words, hoping to understand his true condition. Wouldn't it be easier to tell if we just give it a try? In reality, he had already depleted a third of his magic power. This guy also possessed special magic, making him a formidable opponent. It had been a long time since Gilderts had faced such a formidable opponent. He began to warm up, his expression growing eager. Chapter 145 I can't think of a name. Weiss calmly observed Gilderts, searching for any detail that might lead to a breakthrough. Their gazes met fiercely in the air, invisible sparks igniting between them. Bang! A resounding explosion echoed through the air, shaking the entire battlefield. Their attention was involuntarily drawn to the scene. Makarov had transformed into a massive giant, still maintaining a fist-pumping stance. Not far away, the Demon Heart's airship was belching thick black smoke, its fuselage swaying and tilting in the air, threatening to crash at any moment. The sudden change brought a brief pause to the already tense atmosphere. Both sides paused their actions, their gazes fixed on the crumbling behemoth. The lights on the airship flickered, and occasionally sparks could be seen emanating from the cracks in the hull. The master has taken action. It looks like your lair is about to crash, Gilderts said, gazing at the crumbling airship with a gloating smile. Weiss wasn't as panicked as he'd expected. The president's on the airship, then I hope he doesn't get killed in the fall, then I advise you not to get too excited. The president will give Makarov a real surprise. As Weiss finished speaking, Gilderts couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Oh? So powerful, he wasn't entirely convinced. It's not a question of power or not. They're old acquaintances. Maybe you've even seen his picture in Makarov's office, Weiss said with a meaningful expression. What do you mean? Gildert's heart sank, a vague feeling that things weren't that simple. Weiss didn't intend to explain further. He simply turned and prepared to rush to Hades's location. The show is about to begin. He didn't mention what happened next, nor did he mention Gildert's battle. Your magic is very interesting. I'm giving you a warning, you're in big trouble. He said this and disappeared from the battlefield, leaving Gildert standing there, bewildered, his thoughts racing. Weiss's words resonated like a thunderbolt, piercing his mind and leaving him momentarily bewildered. Weiss returned to his room to a scene of chaos. Items were scattered across the floor, and alarms wailed incessantly. When he left, the airship was in turmoil. In the hallways, personnel frantically dashed back and forth, and alarms blared, a piercing sound filling the airship. Put out the fire, activate the auxiliary wings, don't let the airship fall. No, that just threw us off balance, we can't hold on, the Demon Heart members panicked. With Hades and his 7 followers absent from the airship, they lost their core and fell into a state of leaderless chaos. Don't panic, Lord Weiss, the panicked members' eyes lit up with hope upon seeing him. Weiss waved his hands, and mysterious runes coalesced into a powerful surge of magical energy, surging toward the base of the airship. As Weiss's levitation spell took effect, the teetering behemoth finally regained its balance and stopped its downward spiral. Great, someone cheered, but soon they returned to the frantic repair work. Hurry up and repair the damage, every member raced against time, hoping to get the airship back to normal operation as soon as possible. Amidst a frenzy, Weiss had other thoughts. I've helped so much, a little reward wouldn't be too much. While everyone was busy repairing, Weiss left the crowd and headed straight for Hades's private library. Facing the door, covered in intricate seals, even Weiss frowned. Forcibly removing the seals was possible, but it would immediately draw Hades's attention, while other methods would be time-consuming. As Weiss struggled, 3 unfamiliar magical forces quietly approached the airship. The fairy tale crew has broken in. Perhaps we can use them. As he'd predicted, it wasn't long before the remaining crew members on the airship discovered the 3 uninvited guests. With most of the capable fighters away on missions, only the logistics personnel remained, making resistance particularly weak. The 3 invaders quickly broke through all defenses and reached the rooftop. Weiss stood there, looking at the 3 before him with a meaningful smile. So, they're 3 cats, Harpy, Shialulu, and Lily. Asshole, we're not cats, we're Transcendence, Harpy retorted angrily, but even in anger, its round eyes were endearing. Lily shielded his 2 companions behind him, clutching his magic sword tightly, and assumed a fighting stance. He towered over Weiss, resembling a majestic Black Panther general. You're here to find the president's heart, right? What are you? Shialulu quickly covered Harpy's mouth, preventing him from revealing any more information. Idiot, Shialulu scolded softly, I'm Weiss Irwin. You've arrived just in time. Can you help me break the seal on this door? We won't listen to you, Harpy muttered. Even though Shialulu covered his mouth, he could still hear his protest. Really, a faint murderous aura filled the air, causing the temperature in the room to plummet. As a reward, I'll let you go. Upon hearing this, the 3 Transcendence bodies involuntarily tensed, their hair standing on end. Haha, Weiss burst into laughter. I'm not teasing you anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 spells blasted from his fingertips, accurately hitting Harpy, Shialulu, and Lily. The 3 brave little Transcendents were caught off guard and fell unconscious. With a scapegoat, things will be much easier. Weiss turned and walked towards the library door, violently blowing it down without a second thought. He stood in the library, surveying the neatly arranged bookshelves, a smug grin plastered across his face, like a mouse that had found some grease. With a gentle wave of his hand, the precious tomes flew one by one into his suitcase. I stopped Fairy Tale from destroying the president's heart. These books are my reward. Weiss closed the suitcase filled with books with satisfaction. Then, with one hand, he effortlessly lifted the 3 unconscious kittens and, in a flash, vanished from the spot, reappearing on Tenrau Island. Chapter 146 Black Dragon and Jello. Happy, Charlu, Lily, Gajeel, Wendy, and Natsu, the 3 dragon slayers, immediately gathered around, nervously checking on their companions. Those 3 little brats nearly destroyed President Hades's heart, but luckily I stopped them in time. They left the library in a complete mess, Weiss said effortlessly, as if she had prepared the words long ago, completely oblivious to the truth. Hades snorted coldly, unconvinced. He had removed his eye patch, revealing a breathtaking magical power in his eyes. Ordinary mages wouldn't even dare stand before Hades, and the members participating in the Tenrau Island exams were all the elite of Fairy Tale. They had all gathered on this battlefield, facing Hades as their common enemy. It seems you've taken care of all 7 of the familiars. Quite capable indeed, Weiss said with a hint of admiration. tossing 3 cats to the fairy tale members. "Keep an eye on your pets. Don't let them get away." As Happy, Charlu, and Lily were thrown, the fairy tale members quickly caught them. "President, do you need my help?" Weiss turned to Hades. "No, fairy tale, I will destroy it myself." Weiss nodded and stepped aside. He intended to observe the impending battle up close. This wasn't just a contest between fairy tale and devil heart, but more of an internal struggle to decide their fate. Hades's magical power poured out, the overwhelming pressure making the fairy tale members feel like they were trapped in a quagmire, unable to move. Several S-class mages managed to hold their ground, but the younger generation was practically suffocating. Under such pressure, the youngest, Wendy, was protected by the others, doing her utmost to heal the injured Makarov. Just as everyone felt hopeless, Natsu, a stubborn child, rushed towards Hades without hesitation, his act instantly inspiring the courage of the younger generation. They all broke free from Hades's magical suppression and joined the battle. Hades single-handedly challenged fairy tale's finest mages, and far from being outmatched, his powerful magic rendered them defenseless. Whether it was shattering magic or dragon slayer magic, Hades displayed extraordinary power. In single combat or in group fights, Hades was incredibly ferocious. Weiss stood by, witnessing the entire magical process. Hades not only unleashed the astonishing power of Amaterasu but also employed dark magic. Laxus's lightning dragon slayer magic also shone brightly on the battlefield. Although he was a second-generation dragon slayer, his strength was still formidable. Weiss was most intrigued by Kana, the woman who usually enjoyed drinking. While her card magic was unremarkable, she had mastered the supreme magic of Fairy's Radiance. This magic was unique in that it could only be mastered by fairy tale members. With her companions desperately shielding her, Kana finally unleashed her Fairy's Radiance. Weiss clearly saw a look of astonishment cross Hades' face. Such a weak wizard has learned Mavis's magic. Fairy tale has truly fallen, Hades snorted, finally taking this battle seriously. Devil's Law, dark power gathered in his hands, and the sky was covered with dark clouds, dimming the light. 2 super-level spells collided in mid-air, canceling each other out. How is this possible? This is from the first generation, Kana cried out in disbelief. Hades had easily neutralized her ultimate move. She was overwhelmed by the result, tears welling in her eyes. Even with Gildertz's comfort, Kana couldn't let go of her defeat. "This isn't your fault," Makarov's voice came from nearby. After Wendy's treatment, he had regained some of his fighting ability. This man was once a member of Fairy Tale, the second-generation guild leader. He possessed all of Fairy Tale's magic. Makarov's words sent a whirlwind of activity through the minds of all the Fairy Tale mages present. The enemy before them was far more formidable than they had imagined. "But," Makarov roared, veins bulging on his forehead, "he's only our enemy now. Defeat him." As he finished speaking, Tenrao Island, ravaged by the battle, began to miraculously recover. The forests blossomed with life, and the ice sheets created by Weiss's magic gradually melted, returning to their original state. It was as if the entire island had been turned back in time, returning to its pre-demon heart invasion. Only Altair could have accomplished this. Her actions were a treasonous betrayal of the demon heart and Hades. Hades had not anticipated his most trusted subordinate's betrayal at this crucial moment. His expression grew colder than ice, and he could no longer suppress the murderous rage within him. The Fairy Tale forces, witnessing the restoration of Tenrao Island, felt their morale bolstered, preparing for the impending decisive battle. At that moment, the sound of wings flapping against the air echoed from the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound came from far away, as if some powerful being was flying towards them. Everyone felt as if an invisible hand was gripping their hearts, making it almost impossible to breathe. It was an instinctive warning, foreshadowing the imminent arrival of some irresistible force. Everyone's eyes turned to the sky. A massive black dragon soared in, its scales etched with mysterious patterns. Its wings spread, blocking out the sunlight and plunging the entire sky into shadow. Dragon. The 3 first-generation dragon slayers were the most excited at the appearance of the legendary dragon. Natsu reacted immediately, excitedly waving at the black dragon and shouting, "Hey! Do you know where Igneel is?" In response, he was met with a terrifying roar, its tone carrying a clear message: destruction. Ruin. Gildertz hurriedly stopped Natsu's reckless behavior. "Natsu, calm down. This dragon is the same one that attacked me earlier." Beads of sweat formed on Gildertz's forehead. He was well aware of the Black Dragon's power. Only Weiss, Hades, and Makarov noticed a figure sitting atop the dragon. Hades' voice trembled as he recognized the figure atop the dragon. Zeph, Master Zareth. Chapter 147 Fairy Tale Ending. Zeph seemed to possess a magical power, instantly silencing everyone present. Their gaze was drawn to the young figure atop the black dragon, momentarily oblivious to the dragon's presence. The figure had short black hair and wore a long black robe with a high, stand-up collar. A pendant dangled from his chest, gleaming faintly in the sunlight. A long white cloth was tied around his robe, and he wore black boots. Even in the tense atmosphere, his delicate features remained remarkably calm. "This is Zareth, the founder of the Dark Mage." The flurry of information weighed heavily on the fairy tale members present. They were momentarily unsure how to react to the sudden appearance of such a legendary figure. "Prect," Zareth's voice was deep and magnetic, as if you were familiar with Hades' name. Hades was overjoyed to see that Zareth still remembered him. "Master Zareth, I've come to fetch you. With you, we will create." Zareth's voice was cold and ruthless, interrupting Hades. "Boring, you have taken many lives. Your evil thoughts have summoned a black dragon echnologia, which will destroy this island and bury everyone." "Master Zareth," Hades stared at Zareth in shock. This was completely different from what he had expected. Zareth glanced at Natsu in the crowd before disappearing. Roar! The black dragon's roar was deafening, echoing throughout the sea. Countless animals were frightened to death by the sound. The black dragon circled in the air before swooping down with enough force to pierce through the entire island. Faced with this threat, Fairy Tale's guild master, Makarov, unhesitatingly transformed into a giant, his arms outstretched to block the attack. "Don't even think about harming my children." Unexpectedly, Weiss also joined the fray. He had been waiting for this moment, thinking to himself, "Let me witness the world's greatest power, defense magic." Iron Gate Trio. Weiss cast her spell, and 3 gleaming iron gates rose from the ground. Each gate was incredibly strong, and Weiss was confident they could withstand any missile attack. However, against the black dragon echnologia, the gates were as fragile as biscuits, shattering almost instantly. But at least they relieved some of Makarov's pressure. Bang! A resounding thunderclap was the result of Makarov's massive body colliding with the black dragon. Makarov's face flushed crimson, and veins bulged like snakes in his powerful arms, revealing that he was straining to resist the dragon's onslaught. The ground beneath his feet couldn't withstand the immense force and sank over 10 meters, shaking the entire island. Weiss attacked again, this time a massive magic circle materializing from the ground. Countless golden chains emerged from it, tightly wrapping around the black dragon's body, attempting to restrain it. "What are you standing there for? Waiting to die?" Weiss's roar dispelled everyone's fear, and the others finally reacted and attacked the black dragon. Only Hades remained distraught, as if he had lost his soul. "President, this is no time to lose heart. Survive first. This black dragon intends to kill us all." Weiss's words were like a stern wake-up call, snapping Hades back to his senses. "That's right, no matter what, only by surviving can there be hope." Between dreams and life, it's often the instinct for survival that truly unleashes potential, everything else takes a backseat. Amaterasu, Hyakushiki, a 7-layered array of purple spells appeared around the black dragon, each one radiating a purple glow. "Get out of the way," Hades warned the fairy tale members present. This wasn't because he was suddenly merciful, but because in this life-or-death battle, every single fighter was crucial. Black Dragon's strength was simply too great to be defeated alone, only by joining forces could they achieve victory. Makarov, fully aware of the power of Amaterasu, Hyakushiki, feared no complacency and quickly organized the fairy tale members to evacuate the area, ensuring they would not suffer unnecessary harm from the ensuing attack. Boom! A massive mushroom cloud rose into the sky, obscuring half the sky. The powerful shockwave sent a torrent of waves tens of meters high, accompanied by a fierce wind that swept across the battlefield, threatening to engulf everything. As the smoke gradually cleared, Makarov, blood drenched to the corner of his mouth, stumbled to Hades' side. "I never thought we'd find ourselves joining forces against this enemy." Hades ignored Makarov's sigh. He had simply been forced to join forces, each with his own resolve. As the aftermath of the explosion gradually subsided, everyone was horrified to discover that the black dragon remained unharmed, its scales intact. He simply raised his head slightly, and the golden chains, like noodles, were easily ripped apart by the black dragon's force. Roar! The black dragon let out an earth-shattering roar, then leaped high into the sky. When it reached a certain altitude, it suddenly stopped rising, holding its head high. What's that? The three children raised by dragons, Natsu, Gray, and Lucy, beheld the familiar gesture of the black dragon, feeling a strange sense of nostalgia followed by an overwhelming sense of fear. Be careful, their warning was too late. Everyone present had already sensed the unfathomable surge of magic within the black dragon. That aura, capable of nearly all destruction, had everyone on edge. Even Weiss, as experienced as she was, could not help but sigh. This is a true monster. Faced with an unprecedented threat, no one gave up resistance. Wendy stood among the crowd, her small figure radiating a resolute aura. She closed her eyes slightly, raised her hands gently, and chanted something. As she chanted, a gentle, warm magical energy slowly emanated, caressing everyone like a gentle breeze. This was Wendy's buffing spell, enveloping everyone in a layer of fortified armor, greatly boosting their strength and confidence. Even Weiss and Hades were bathed in this warm magic. Weiss gripped his wand tightly, took a deep breath, and poured all his magical power into it like a surging tide. The wand instantly glowed brightly, its powerful surges making the air around them seem scorching. As Weiss manipulated his magic, 9 massive magic circles suddenly appeared in the sky, covering the entire island. The immense magical output made Weiss's face pale, beads of sweat formed on his forehead, and his body trembled slightly. The power of the Philosopher's stone within his cells began to take effect, nourishing his body like a warm spring. His magic power began to rapidly regenerate, allowing him to continue maintaining the powerful magic circle. The others also unleashed their trump cards. Each one gave their all to defend Tenrau Island. However, as everyone nervously prepared for the impending attack, the black dragon in the sky lowered its massive head. Its eyes, as deep as a lake, coldly gazed upon the ants below, a flicker of disdain in them. Then, it opened its massive maw and aimed it at Tenrau Island. A deafening roar echoed, and a powerful force erupted from the black dragon's mouth. Compared to Natsu's fire dragon's roar, that terrifying attack was nothing more than a tiny flame. The black dragon's attack was like a devastating torrent, instantly engulfing the entire Tenrau Island. The first 6 of Weiss's 9 magic circles were instantly shattered by the powerful attack. The shattered circles, like fragile glass, dissipated into countless fragments in the air. The remaining 3 layers held out for a mere second before crumbling beneath the black dragon's roar. The shockwaves from the dragon's roar surged, centered around Tenrau Island, sending waves hundreds of meters high. Like an enraged giant, the wave surged in all directions, seemingly threatening to devour everything. As the raging force finally subsided, the once bustling sea fell into deathly silence. The once vibrant Tenrau Island vanished without a trace, as if it had never existed in these waters. Not a trace remained of the land that once held so many memories and hopes. Only the endless ripples of the waters silently shone, as if silently telling of the brutal battle that had just taken place. The black dragon's massive form shifted slightly in the sky, its massive wings flapping, stirring up a fierce wind. A strong wind roared past, rippling the waters. The black dragon glanced coldly at the empty sea below, its eyes devoid of any emotion, as if everything that had just happened was a trivial matter. Then, it flapped its wings and flew away, leaving behind only a silent sky and a turbulent sea. Chapter 148 Return to Marvel. I didn't expect it couldn't even withstand a single blow, Weiss muttered, his eyes filled with shock. He'd always known the black dragon, Acnologia, was powerful, but he'd never imagined it could be so devastating. Its terrifying power seemed capable of destroying everything in the world, leaving humans feeling dwarfed and powerless before it. A true monster. I just wonder how earth-shattering Zeraf's attack will be. Weiss's eyes revealed a deep longing, a desire to possess such immense power. Just as the black dragon's roar was about to strike Tenrau Island, the entire island suddenly shimmered in golden light. Weiss immediately understood it was Mavis who had taken action. She appeared as a ghost and, combining the faith and magic of Natsu Dragneel and the others, unleashed the absolute defensive magic, Fairy Sphere, to protect all the guild members on the island. Weiss knew he was an enemy of Fairy Tail, and that this magic wouldn't protect him. He also had no desire to remain at the bottom of the ocean for 7 years. So, at the last moment, he decisively journeyed back to the Marvel world. Back at his potion shop, even after being away for some time, the room remained spotless thanks to magic. The familiar atmosphere brought a sense of peace to him. Gurgle, gurgle, Weiss's stomach suddenly growled, and he realized he hadn't eaten in half a day. After several intense battles, he was already starving. He pushed open the door, and the bustling sounds outside instantly wafted in. The moment the door opened, the muggle-repelling charm Weiss had cast automatically deactivated. Passers-by didn't notice the sudden appearance of the small shop on the street, continuing their hurried paths. Only a few observant people noticed the shop's presence. Target has appeared, keep an eye on them. The agents, who thought they were hiding well, didn't realize they had already been completely exposed to Weiss. But Weiss was too lazy to expose them. Weiss strolled leisurely through the streets, searching for a restaurant that suited his tastes. He moved slowly through the crowds, and the agents who had been secretly following him didn't follow him into the restaurant after he entered. They also understood that in such a public place, overly obvious stalking would only cause unnecessary trouble. Wes found a quiet corner of the restaurant and sat down, patiently waiting for his meal. The restaurant was filled with a warm atmosphere, and the soft lighting cast a particularly comfortable glow on the tables. Just then, a deafening roar suddenly erupted from the sky, a sound like rolling thunder, instantly shattering the city's tranquility. Then, a loud clang sounded, as if a massive metal object had landed. "Oh my God, it's Iron Man," someone in the crowd shouted, their voice filled with surprise and excitement. Instantly, everyone's attention was drawn to the metallic figure. The gleaming metallic armor shone brightly in the sunlight. Tony greeted the onlookers with a flamboyant manner, his confident smile and dashing movements captivating everyone. Tony walked straight towards Wes's table, his presence striking the eye. Upon seeing him, the diners excitedly pulled out their phones to take pictures. Tony, decked out in his armor, struck a few stylish poses, looking like he was walking a fashion show. "Alright, everyone, we have to be considerate of the other guests. As compensation for interrupting your meal, I'll be picking up the tab for everything today." Tony's voice was filled with magnetism and confidence. His generosity was met with cheers, and the crowd was captivated by the superhero's generosity and demeanor. The atmosphere in the restaurant instantly lit up, and everyone's face was filled with excitement and joy. Tony casually plopped down across from Wes, a look of curiosity and teasing on his face. "I didn't expect a mysterious wizard to be so young. I thought he'd be a gray-haired old man beneath the mask." His words were tinged with surprise and amusement. "If you're interested in gray-haired old men, I can introduce you to a 110-year-old wizard. You're so funny, I think he'd like you," Wes replied calmly. Tony's skin crawled with goosebumps upon hearing this. He exclaimed in astonishment, "You wizards do this, too?" Wes just stared at him silently, silent. His gaze seemed to see through everything, making Tony feel uneasy. "Alright," Tony said with a reluctant French salute. "I'm here to thank you. The potion you gave me bought me a lot of time, but I've been having nightmares for a month straight. Do you have any more?" "I'll pay a high price." Tony was filled with anticipation, convinced no one in the world could refuse his offer. But Wes shook his head. "Or maybe you could sell me the formula." Undeterred, Tony continued to probe. "I don't think you'd ever want to know the ingredients in the potion." Wes's tone was calm, yet tinged with mystery. "Worse than palladium poisoning?" Tony frowned. 100 times worse, Wes's answer sent a jolt through Tony's heart. If Tony knew the ingredients in the potion he was taking, he would live with guilt for the rest of his life. "Alright," Tony shrugged, abandoning the question. "I said I'd repay you later." "What do you want?" Tony was utterly confident. Whether it was money, women, status, or anything else, he could satisfy Wes. In his view, there was nothing in this world he couldn't do. "I don't need anything, or rather, what I need you can't give me." Wes's response was succinct and decisive. "What?" Tony's face was filled with question marks, his face filled with disbelief. Was there anything in this world he couldn't give? This was questioning his ability. Wes didn't bother to continue discussing this arrogant man. Meanwhile, the waitress served Wes's meal, but her attention was completely focused on Tony. Tony smiled, and the waitress acted like an nymphomaniac. Wes, on the other hand, was absorbed in his lunch. "Well, if you're ever in trouble, you know where to find me." Tony, dressed in his battle armor, sauntered off. He was a busy man these days, and didn't have much time to waste on one person. Wes continued to enjoy his lunch without looking up, oblivious to the gazes fixed on him. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, full of curiosity and speculation. Chapter 149 Agent. They all wondered in their hearts, what was the identity of this seemingly ordinary young man? Why would Iron Man, a figure of such importance in the United States, come all the way to see him? Questions swirled in their minds, but Wes, seemingly in a world of his own, completely ignored the curious glances. After lunch, Wes calmly walked out of the restaurant. As he stepped outside, a black SUV pulled up steadily in front of him. Coulson, his hair thinning, stepped out with a friendly smile. Mr. Erwin, long time no see. Coulson's voice was gentle and steady. Wes wasn't surprised at all. He had long been aware of Coulson's presence with his keen senses. You guys are truly omnipresent, Wes said with a hint of sarcasm. As Coulson and the agent stared in astonishment, Wes got into the car. Let's go. Take me to your boss, he said calmly and decisively. Yes, Mr. Erwin. Coulson immediately instructed everyone to get in and set off. Engines roared, and the vehicles sped away, leaving behind a sea of curious glances and chattering voices. The convoy smoothly rolled through the streets, wheels rolling. Finally, they arrived in the bustling heart of New York City. The towering buildings and bustling traffic conveyed a sense of the city's energy and bustle. The convoy slowly pulled into the Seraphim building, a magnificent structure bathed in sunlight, radiating a modern and majestic presence. Most people wouldn't imagine a secret organization would locate its headquarters in such a bustling location, and one so conspicuous, Coulson proudly introduced. This is one of SHIELD's largest bases. Entering the underground garage, armed patrols were everywhere. Their expressions were serious, their gazes alert, and they maintained a state of constant alert. The defenses here are top tier. The building can withstand a magnitude 10 earthquake, and it even has bomb shelters built to withstand a nuclear attack. Coulson detailed the defenses, his tone brimming with confidence. The car stopped next to an elevator. Coulson, long time no see, a bearded man with a model-like build, fully armed, led a group of men. His steps were firm and powerful, and he exuded a fierce aura. Crossbones? Why are you here? Coulson's face was filled with surprise. He didn't remember Crossbones' name being on today's patrol roster. Oh, Locke had an urgent mission, and the boss asked me to cover for a while. My hard-earned vacation has been ruined, Crossbones complained, a hint of helplessness on his face. Coulson patted his shoulder in understanding, his eyes filled with sympathy. Crossbones looked at Wes. Who is this guest? Coulson replied briefly, not revealing Wes's identity. Got it, Crossbones nodded in understanding. We need to check it according to procedure, Crossbones. Coulson tried to stop him. Coulson, you know, rules are rules, Crossbones spoke firmly. The two burly men behind him immediately stepped forward, ready to search Wes. Wes glanced at them. In an instant, the two men froze in place, unable to even blink. What are you doing? Crossbones urged. However, when he found himself unable to move, standing there like a statue, he was filled with shock. Wes walked into the elevator with an expressionless face, motioning to Coulson to come in. Coulson hurriedly entered, filled with awe at Wes's mysterious power. The elevator door slowly closed, leaving a group of people standing like statues. Mr. Erwin, they mean no harm. It's just the way the program works, Coulson explained hastily, a hint of apology in his tone. Whether they have any ill intentions or not, I know, Wes replied calmly, closing his eyes and ignoring Coulson. Seeing this, Coulson stopped explaining, knowing that any more words would be useless. Ding, the elevator reached the top floor. Coulson led the way. The floor was remarkably quiet, deserted, and so empty that one wondered if it was some shell company. However, Wes could detect that the floor was rife with traps. The formidable firepower would make it impossible for even the most highly trained Navy SEALs to break in. Coulson opened a door and stood aside respectfully. After Wes entered, he gently closed the door. In the room, a dark-skinned man in a black leather jacket, Nick Fury, stood in front of the French window, overlooking the bustling city of New York. Wes ignored the mysterious Nick Fury, sat on the sofa and took out a book. For a moment, no one spoke, and the only sound in the huge room was the sound of Wes flipping through the book. 10 minutes passed, and the room was still silent. Half an hour later, Nick Fury finally broke the silence. You know what? You are not the only special one in this world, Nick Fury, not knowing whether he had seen enough of the scenery or could no longer pretend, said, the world is vast, and there are people more powerful than you. You mean the gods in the Norse mythology of Asgard, The Skrulls and Kree in the universe, Wes responded without raising his head. Nick Fury's eyes nearly popped out of his head. How did you know that? You hacked into our intelligence system. The master agent thought he could intimidate Wes and seize the initiative in the conversation, but he hadn't anticipated having his underwear completely stripped bare. These are just common sense, and you're the only ones who keep them secret. Wes's words were filled with sarcasm. He raised his chin slightly, a hint of disdain in his eyes. It's like a beggar holding onto a piece of bread and thinking it's the most delicious food in the world. His metaphor was sharp and direct, mercilessly exposing SHIELD's narrow-minded understanding of information. Fortunately, Nick Fury's skin was dark enough, otherwise Wes would have seen his face change from black to red and then back to black again. In that moment, Nick Fury's heart might have been filled with shock and anger, but his resolute face remained calm. Are you an alien? Nick Fury stared at Wes, trying to discern the answer from his expression. Whatever you think. I'm here today for one reason. Wes put away his book with a quick, decisive movement. I don't like being surrounded by flies 24/7. It's annoying. Wes's tone was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Withdraw your people, or you'll never see them again. Are you threatening me? Nick Fury's voice was low and commanding, carrying an unquestionable aura. Chapter 150 Shameless. It's not a threat, it's a notice. Wes met Nick Fury's gaze fearlessly, his attitude resolute and decisive, a statement of his resolve. In the tense atmosphere, their gazes met, an invisible spark seemed to fly in the air. Nick Fury struggled to suppress his anger, his dark face expressionless. Do you understand what you're doing? You're challenging the world's most powerful intelligence organization. You're going against the entire world. His voice was deep and powerful, carrying a strong sense of oppression. First, you don't represent the entire world. Wes didn't back down. Second, even if we're against the entire world, so what? Wes felt completely confident. With his control panel, it would be illogical for him to fear SHIELD. He might as well just bang his head against something. Want to deal with me? Call your friends in outer space. Wes's lips curled up slightly, a mocking smile forming. Nick Fury took 2 steps back, his hand unconsciously rubbing the pager at his waist, his only way to contact Captain Marvel. This world, this universe, is more vast than you imagine. SHIELD, Wes scoffed. What a joke, not a funny one. You were never the ones protecting Earth. His words were filled with disdain for SHIELD. What do you mean? There are others. Before Nick Fury could finish his words, Wes vanished. Nick Fury froze, his heart filled with shock and anger. He slammed his fist down on the table with a dull thud. The table trembled slightly, as if embodying Nick Fury's fury and helplessness. In the empty room, Nick Fury stood alone, lost in deep thought. After the conversation, the men who had been shadowing Wes withdrew one by one in an orderly fashion. Without fully understanding Wes's true strength, Nick Fury would never act rashly. The Master of Spies knew that facing an unknown and powerful force, rash action would only lead to unpredictable consequences. Like a calm chess player, he carefully planned his strategy before the situation became clear, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Once he found Wes's weakness, war would begin. Nick Fury had firmly determined that Wes was a destabilizing force. In his eyes, the world needed order and stability, and anything that could disrupt this balance must be treated with caution. His strategy for destabilizing forces was clear and decisive, either strict regulation and control, or complete destruction. Only in this way could the world's security and stability be guaranteed. Wes, however, held his own beliefs and principles and would never accept regulation. A war was inevitable, and both sides were confident of ultimate victory. Wes remained quietly in the Marvel Universe, but his presence was not without purpose. The devastating power of the Black Dragon, Acnologia, hung heavy over him like a heavy cloud, filling him with a deep sense of urgency. Whenever he recalled the Black Dragon's terrifying might, Wes felt a deep sense of insignificance and powerlessness. He desperately desired to become even stronger, but he knew it was impossible to achieve a quantum leap in his strength in a short period of time. So, he turned his attention to external things. He knew that a miraculous treasure would soon descend upon Earth. This treasure held immense power, poised to help him take a crucial step toward ascending to greater power. To this end, Wes displayed remarkable patience, like a calm hunter, quietly awaiting the perfect opportunity. One day, Wes sat leisurely in a renowned New York coffee shop on the corner. Sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing him in a warm atmosphere. He elegantly savored the desserts, the delicate texture and sweet flavor blooming on his tongue, momentarily detaching him from the hustle and bustle of the world. The coffee shop's desserts, renowned throughout New York for their unique flavors and exquisite craftsmanship, drew a large crowd. Just as Wes was basking in this moment of tranquility and enjoyment, Callison hurriedly trotted over. His face was itched with anxiety and nervousness, beads of sweat streaking his forehead. Callison's figure stood out from the crowd, his steps hurried and frantic. "Here we go. The time's up," Wes muttered silently in his mind. When he finally reached Wes, he couldn't wait to say, "Mr. Erwin, Earth is in trouble. We need your help." Callison quickly explained what had happened, his tone filled with concern. A powerful alien had suddenly attacked the secret base, displaying astonishing strength. This mysterious alien might have already assembled an alien army, ready to invade Earth at any moment. Earth was facing an unprecedented crisis, and they urgently needed Wes's help to deal with it. When Callison approached Wes for help, he deliberately concealed crucial information, including the existence of the Space Stone. He knew that revealing this information would cause further complications and trouble. However, he had no idea that Wes knew even more than he did. Wes hadn't expected SHIELD to be so brazen as to ask for his help. His conversation with Nick Fury hadn't been harmonious. He had originally intended to act alone, after all, he had his own plans and goals. But at this moment, accepting S.H.I.E.L.D.'s invitation seemed like a good option. "I can agree, but I won't do it for nothing," Wes said firmly and decisively. He knew his own worth, and understood that in this world of quid pro quo, there's no such thing as a free lunch. He wouldn't be easily exploited by S.H.I.E.L.D., but would have to earn his due. Callison smiled wryly at this remark. "Mr. Irving, this is a matter of life and death for all of humanity." He tried to use moral pressure to coax Wes into a compromise, hoping he'd help S.H.I.E.L.D. for free out of the greater good. "Don't flatter yourself. You're the ones who caused this trouble, and you want others to clean up your mess without paying the price. You're just trying to morally blackmail others," Wes retorted bluntly. He saw through S.H.I.E.L.D.'s calculations and was deeply dissatisfied with their selfish behavior. Callison rubbed his nose awkwardly. He knew Wes had a point, but he also felt helpless. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.